Good morning, everybody. I'm Fear the Reaper, and unfortunately, we don't have a big Poppa Timo, and this is the mid-lunch crisis. So, how has everybody been? Got a little farming simulator. Farming simulator going on here, and unfortunately we don't have a big Poppa Timo. Got our mining and construction map going on here. Oh, back up. Is that it? I think that's it. Yep, that's where this needs to go. So I know it's been a while. It's been a few weeks. I've been busy getting back to work. That's always fun. Going from sitting on my butt all day doing nothing but talking to you guys and playing video games to working full time. It's always a bit of a rough transition, but we're figuring it out. I actually honestly haven't even played since the last mid-lunch crisis. So I think we're gonna try and buy a field at some point so we can grow corn. So we can make some diesel fuel. I bought a little bit, but it's kind of expensive. what's everybody else been up to? I've been out of the loop. Let's go see if we got any rubber. We should. We do. So what's been going on? I know I've got dozens of projects that need done. I've got a few that are started but not finished. Got the bikes, got all the wheels taken off and taken to the shop. Those should be done either today or tomorrow with some new tires. Started putting a loft in the barn. I need to finish that today or tomorrow. What's up, Mary Lizzie? Welcome to the stream. How's Mary been? I sound far away. That's probably because I am. Let me move my mic. How's that? Let's see if that's any better. I was leaning back. Being lazy. Somewhat better. Well, see if that works. So we have got some more farming simulator today. Yeah, I think we're all tired today for some reason. I tried to get a lot done yesterday. It didn't work so well. Like I said, I dropped off the wheels for the bikes. Oh, that's better. Okay, yeah, I just moved my screen out of the way. Getting those wheels off was quite a challenge, but we got CJ and I got them off finally. Midway through building a bedroom for Rent-A-Child, which I have told her that I have to find her a new name, because if she has her own bedroom, I don't think I can call her Rent-A-Child any longer. Hey, there's Big Poppa Timo. Be getting a cameo from Big Poppa Timo here soon, hopefully. So yeah, I don't think I can call her Rent-A-Child any longer. Why does she need her own room? Well, because she doesn't like it at home. My daughter likes it when she's here, but they've been sharing the room for a couple months now, and they'd like some of their own privacy. We have I don't want to call it a spare bedroom, because it kind of is, but it's pretty small. It was actually what I was going to use for my studio. It would have been perfect for a desk and computer setup, but they asked me last weekend if they could turn it into a bedroom for Ava. And I said yes, mostly because I wanted it cleaned out. It was kind of our catch-all storage space. And the best way to clean it out is to trick the kids into doing it for you. what I'm actually planning on doing is, since like I said, there's not a whole lot of room there. I'm actually going to build her bed off the wall. So it'll be... Oh man, that thing picked up sand. Oh well. So it'll actually be suspended off the wall. And then that way we can put the dresser that's in there under the bed. It'll save space. It finally stopped raining yesterday long enough to get the grass mowed. Yeah, yep. How to trick your child. So what am I missing? River sand. And I needed the fuel for that. Because I have to power the plant. No, don't throw the truck. Get in the truck. True story. Yeah. Big Papa Timo says the first thing kids learn is how to trick their parents. True story. Yep, and we have biodiesel. Yay. Oops. I really need to clean off my desk. It has become my work area as well. because my workbench is covered with stuff. Now my desk is covered with stuff. Now we should be processing some river sand. Oh yeah.
howdy, howdy. Just an FYI, you're muted on Discord. Don't know if you're muted on the stream, but you're not muted on Discord anymore.
I was muted on the stream. Oops. So you didn't hear my story.
I wasn't actually watching from the time I said BRB.
So I was apparently talking to myself. That's okay. So
I
how?
could hear you up until BRB, by the way. You were
Yeah,
you were fine up until then.
I actually had to cough, and I set my hotkeys so my Discord mute and my OBS mute are the same. I thought I had unmuted, and I apparently did not.
Mm. Oops.
Yeah.
Technical difficulties.
See,
Gotta love them.
it's the only one today. So how?
So hey, how's it going?
Going pretty good. How have you been?
Not too bad. So I have updates on
Ooh.
all sorts of different things.
Ooh.
Some of them involve, advice that you had given me in the past, and some of them do not.
Okay.
So let's start with the advice that Reaper gave me. So you guys know that Reaper has been looking out for Timo's well-being the whole time during this situation, during the Captain Crunch thing, and he sent me a link about Pennsylvania's unemployment programs for self-employed individuals. Now, as soon as you sent me that link, I clicked on it and diligently went and filled out all the forms and everything, and then spent the next month waiting patiently for any form of response and got nothing because the state of Pennsylvania is pretty damn slow with a lot of things.
Yeah.
Um, and so after about 4 weeks of waiting, I tried to log back into the account that I supposedly had set up through that website, and without having a PIN number, you can't log in. So I read through all the facts and everything else like that and did all the stuff and couldn't figure out any way to log in. Lo and behold, I think last time we had 2 weeks ago when we did the mid-lunch crisis, I had said that I had gotten the email stating that there were going to be all these big changes, blah, 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 but they still hadn't sent me a PIN. Now, to this day, they still have not sent me my PIN, and I have not gotten the prepaid debit card that I'm supposed to receive. But what I did get in the mail via USPS, on Friday, I got a notification stating, "Congratulations, you are in fact eligible for Pennsylvania's unemployment compensation for self-employed individuals." And they gave me the amount that I'm going to receive per week, and I have to file biweekly claims. Well, to file biweekly claims, you need a PIN.
Yes.
So I know I'm going to get something once I get this PIN number. Now, unfortunately, this is not regular unemployment compensation. The phone lines for this particular program don't even exist. You can call about regular unemployment, but you can't call about this yet because it's a totally new system for Pennsylvania. They don't know what the hell they're doing.
No.
But I'm going to get something. I just don't know when. They have to send me a pin. I'm hoping that with Memorial Day weekend and the timing that since I got this is like the declaration letter is what I finally got. So I should be receiving in the very near future a PIN number and a card with which to draw the money. And the other cool thing was they have decided to retroactively pay these amounts from, I believe it said February 1st
Uh.
instead of March 1st.
Ooh.
Now here's the bad thing about it. So they base all of my numbers off of quarterly earnings. We don't have to do, well, I mean, we still have to basically say every 2 weeks, yeah, I'm still not working. I'm still not working. I'm still not working. But they're going to go back from that. So my quarterly earnings as Darkwater Arms and Armor traditionally speaking, January, February, March are the worst performing months of my business out of the year. And they're basing my numbers off of that. Now, at the end of April, May, June, second quarter, they will reassess my quarterly earnings and then pay me for second quarter through the third quarter.
Ah,
If this continues on through the third quarter, then they will, at the end of the third quarter, base everything off of, it's a quarter behind on everything. So
yeah.
as things go, I should get more and more. But for now, I'm getting all this income based off of my first quarter earnings, which suck. And we're about to enter third quarter, or we're rapidly approaching third quarter. Traditionally, like literally 80% of my income comes third quarter. Third quarter earnings are traditionally my best because that's when all the big events happen. Now, the other real big downside is regardless of whether or not they open up the state and everything goes back to normal, I will still not have any income because everybody's canceled everything for the
Yeah.
year. We have one event still on the books that has not been canceled that is scheduled in October. And they're holding out hope that come August, this will all be back to relative normal. And if not, then they will cancel then. So they'll give everybody still, um, still give everybody 2 months warning on everything like that. But yeah, so it's something. It's better than nothing.
Well,
But
I have to remind you of something that should brighten your day a little bit.
what's that?
You also, in addition to that financial determination that you got, you also qualify for the extra $600 a week from the federal government, which will be retroactive back to April 4th. That will go through July 31st, I believe.
Now, where do you get that information?
That's from the first stimulus package they passed. Now, the way it worked for us, there was no information on it. There was no nothing. Basically, all that happened is when you filed your biweekly claim.
Mm-hmm.
Say you file that today, you would get your state unemployment usually either Tuesday or Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
The following Tuesday or Wednesday, you would get another deposit for the $1,200. And that, like I said, is also retroactive.
Gotcha. Now you don't have to actually apply for that or anything. It's just
No,
on.
that's automatic.
Now, are you sure that that qualifies for self-employed individuals?
That's everybody on unemployment. If you qualified for unemployment, you automatically qualify for the extra $600.
Well, see, that's the thing. I don't qualify for traditional unemployment.
It's for self-employed as well.
Okay.
If you got approved for unemployment, then that $600 applies to you as well.
Okay. Well, see, that's where I'm still curious because this program is not traditional unemployment insurance.
Right.
This is a totally different program that they had to set up.
Yeah.
So we'll
That
see.
then that was unfortunately it was a long time coming. But the extra $600 a week was originally passed, excuse me, for guys like you.
Gotcha.
It was
Oh,
originally
there were a lot of things bad for guys like me that just didn't come to
Yeah.
happen.
The extra $600 was basically passed for self-employed people that their unemployment wasn't going to come close to their actual loss of income. Now, the rest of us who were on unemployment benefited from it as well, because it's just a blanket coverage. If you're getting unemployment compensation, you're getting the $600. Now, unfortunately, that, like I said, is only available through July.
Still, I mean, even something like that is a huge that would be a major boon to
Yeah.
cover the difference in losses. Now, the other crappy thing is when they base it on quarterly earnings. Spreading your quarterly earnings out over a weekly pay is, I mean, it's okay, but it's still like 20%, 25% of what my actual quarterly earnings would have been. The percentages are way low, but it's also hard to do because when you do a lot of it, my earnings and my expenses, as a small business, actually don't really come out the same way that everybody else's do. So my income coming in, it's actually fairly accurate what they end up doing, because what I'm going to make is about what I would have had left over after all of the income coming in and all the expenses going out. I don't have expenses going out right now because I'm not producing anything at the moment. So it's not like I'm buying a bunch of leather to make a bunch of leather to sell a bunch of leather.
Yeah.
So it's actually it's not too bad. I really can't complain too much, especially since it's better than, nothing.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's actually how unemployment works anyway. The regular stuff, we usually only get 80%
mhm.
up to the max. Now the max is not 80% of what I make, but um, if I made less, then that's what they would base it on. It would be 80% of your base income.
Oh yeah, I've been on basic unemployment before. When I got terminated at the cemetery, I collected unemployment for 6 months.
And
Um,
that's kind of
so
why they.
that's cool. But there's other updates too.
Oh, more info on
More.
Timo.
But wait, there's more. So, as you guys know, I suffer from anxiety and depression, which sucks. I also suffer from insomnia, which also sucks. But I've been wrecking my sleep schedule recently. I've been staying awake for like 30, 36 hours at a time and then sleeping for 12 or 14. And it's actually what I ended up doing last night. I was up for 30 hours straight and then slept for 12. But now I'm up and about. And tomorrow, Big Papa Timo sort of goes back to work, but not in the traditional sense.
Oh.
I have my buddy that has that property in Ohio, the campsite,
Mm-hmm.
has hired me on to do some heavy equipment operation and build a road and build some footers for a vehicle bridge and a bunch of other fun stuff. So I will be MIA 4 days out of the week, so Monday through Thursday. I'll pretty much be off grid because I'll be on this site. But I get to go dig in the dirt, kids. I get to go have some fun.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, and the pay on that will actually be quite nice, especially since it's off the books. So
That's always nice.
yeah, cash off the books is always good.
What's up, EE? So actually, that was kind of what I was. My story was about. While I was muted, I'm using the loader on the game here, and uh, I was saying that one of my duties at work, twice a year, once at the beginning and once at the end, is to flush our oil tankers.
Hmm.
And we use a specific oil for that. We pump it in, and then it we get it really hot, pump it in, and it kind of loosens up all the crap in there, and then we pump it back out. And in order to pump it back out, to make sure we get as much out as possible, we take a loader and we lift up the front of the trailer. And we got a new loader at work this year, and I'm not a fan. It's a case. I don't know why he bought a case, but he did. So I take this loader and I go to lift up the front of the trailer that has approximately 3,600 gallons of oil in it. So it's about half full. And it picks it up just fine. But as I set the parking brake and I go to get out, the the loader does a nosedive,
Oof,
which has never happened to me. So that was a fun ride.
I bet.
It's actually a lot of what I've been doing at work here lately too. Is equipment hauling and operating, and because we're not chipping yet.
Yeah.
Um, the one day I ended up, I went into work on the board when I left, it said that I was calibrating distributors, which is fine. When I come in the next morning, it says C. Kurt. Now, Kurt's one of the owners.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so he was in the employee room when I walked in. Now, one of the things, we now have to wear masks in the employee areas.
Yeah.
So I turned around and I said, "I see you." And he said, "Hey, what's up?" I said, I said, "You got that mask on, but I know under there's that smile, and I'm worried." And he goes, "Oh no, it's nothing bad today." He's like, "I just need you to load up a grader and a skid steer and take them out to the site," which I did. And then I had to grab 2 more pieces of equipment and take them out, and bring 2 back and take 2 more out. And so I ended up hauling 8 pieces of equipment that day. I was, I was beat.
I bet. Sounds like all sorts of fun.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so Mary, yes, you can come camp for free as friends of Big Poppa on this site this year. You're more than welcome to come out. I am going to put you to work, though.
Yeah,
I am going to put you to work.
that's exactly it.
I know you're smiling and it's not good. Yeah, so that's actually this is one of my biggest complaints with the whole mask thing. Now, granted, masks are great, so don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I don't like masks and I don't want to wear masks. Um, I still have problems with the efficacy of cloth masks, but they are better than nothing. And I do love that meme going around, showing the difference between not wearing a mask and somebody peeing on you, and you wearing a mask and they're not wearing a mask and they're still peeing on you, and them wearing, and it's the whole, you're both not wearing pants in the first one, you're wearing pants in the second one, then you're both wearing pants. But in all 3 of the things, the person's trying to pee on you. The third one being the best, when they try and pee on you when they're wearing pants, they just piss their pants. That's great. So I'm a big fan of that and everything. But my complaint with the whole mask thing is you can't always tell when people are smiling. So last week I went out to this site to go take a look at all the work that I need to do and to basically negotiate terms for me coming out there to the site, because I've had dealings with this site in the past where I've actually run this site before, and there were problems because other people got involved and kind of countermanded my directions and stuff like that, and did a bunch of work when I was not there, or broke a bunch of equipment right after I left that I had just fixed. So I had to go out and actually talk face to face with the guy that owns the place. But coming back from this place in Ohio, I decided to stop in St. Clairsville, which is it's the easternmost town in Ohio before you go into Wheeling, West Virginia, and then back into PA. So I stopped at Starbucks because it's been 2 months since Big Papa Timo has had Starbucks. And I go to the drive-through, and I've got a Starbucks card with me. I've got a Starbucks gift card somebody gave me. So I'm like, screw it. This isn't going to cost me anything. I'm going to get some coffee. I'm on the road. This is awesome. Um, and then go through the drive-through, and I pull up to the window, and this young lady opens opens the window to hand me my drink, and she hands me my drink and everything. She's like, "That'll be $6.15," which
Holy
It's
crap.
Starbucks. It's gonna be, wow, the way that I get my coffee, it's got extra shots in it and everything. So it's gonna be expensive. And I knew it was gonna be expensive. And so I'm looking at her and I can't tell if she's smiling because she's got this big black mask on, but she has these beautiful blue eyes, just peering over the mask and everything. And her eye makeup is done really, really well. So she knows that all people can see is her eyes. So she's done her eyes up quite nicely. And she's just like, that'll be 6.15. So I hold up the gift card and I was like, can I tip you guys on this gift card? And she turns around to her manager and asks, and he's like, no, unfortunately, you have to use you can do the the Starbucks app, or you can't tip on the gift card. Basically, is the what it comes down to. I'm like, well, crap. Then let me put that away, and I hand the girl a $20 bill, and she's like, okay, your change is going to be, and I was like, no, this is what I want you to do. I want you to take uh, I want $10 to go towards the drink. You get the tip for what's left over. So the 385 goes to you, and then take the other $10 and divide it between all the other people that are in the store. And she looks at me and she's just like, are you sure? I was like, you guys are working during a really, really crappy time and I really, really appreciate it. Her eyes totally changed. I knew for a fact that this girl is smiling ear to ear at this point in time, but behind this big black mask. She just lit up. And everybody behind her stopped and like turned towards the window and they're like, we didn't do anything for your order, sir. It was all her. She should get it. I was like, you guys decide what to do with the extra $10, but I think you guys should all get a tip for coming in and working. And so like they all started smiling and I knew they were all smiling. I was like, okay, this is cool. So I did my good deed for quote unquote essential life sustaining employees because those kids at Starbucks that day, they were definitely life sustaining. That was the best cup of coffee I've ever had, by the way, guys.
Now, here's my problem with the life sustaining employees and whatnot. Now, those people at Starbucks are making pretty close to minimum wage. So, while those of us who benefited from the unemployment compensation and the extra unemployment and all that good stuff, we're okay. They're not, because they don't qualify for unemployment because they're still working. But they're not making nearly enough.
I concur.
The
I
price of
concur.
the price of groceries is going through the roof.
Yes.
So unfortunately, those people at grocery stores and Starbucks and fast food restaurants that have been open this whole time are really getting screwed.
Yes, yes, they are. And we fall under that as well because as you guys know, my wife is deemed an essential employee. She works at the deli at the local supermarket. She's been working the whole time. She would be making so much more money right now if she had been laid off. Because that extra $600 a week that got tacked on to everything
Yep.
is more than she makes. My wife, Stacy makes, I think she's up to 785 an hour right now working at the deli. So minimum wage is 725 at the moment.
Yeah, I believe so.
So she makes 60 cents more an hour than minimum wage and has been working anywhere between 37 and 39.5 hours a week this whole time. Now, that's also a very important distinction because employers are not stupid. They know that if they have somebody working 40 hours a week, they have to pay additional insurance and additional things and provide health care and all this other crap. So they make sure that their quote unquote full-time employees are not actual full-time employees. They're part-timers for the books. So she doesn't get um, the health insurance and all that other stuff, or even access to the health insurance through the programs. They do have a health insurance program available, but oh my God, it's $800 a month. Which when you make $400 a week
Yeah.
is half your income, which your mortgage is not even supposed to be half your income. Your mortgage on your house is supposed to be a third of your monthly income. So that's not feasible. But she would be making quite literally with 80% of her employment or her pay plus $600 a week, she would be making so much more an hour on unemployment. So yeah, these kids, while they're working and they're now Ohio law, they were not deemed essential. Starbucks was recently just allowed to open back up, and they had to have certain restrictions on how they did it. It had to be at door or curbside service,
Yeah.
and a bunch of other things. So, um, it wasn't quite what everybody likes to think, per se. Um, but it is what it is. So, I did try to brighten these kids' day, and give them a little something other than what they had. So, and tipping people is always a good way to do it. If you have the ability to tip people, try and tip people. It's much nicer.
Yeah, and unfortunately, like I said, with the way everything came out with the stimulus package, uh, nobody thought about that. Nobody thought about the people that are making minimum wage, and unfortunately, they're still not. Um, I've kind of been following the second stimulus package pretty closely. Um, and it doesn't look like it's going to get any better. Um, the bill that was passed in the House was um, adequate. It wasn't spectacular. It would. Let me rephrase that. It would have been adequate if it would have been passed in the Senate immediately. It was basically another round of stimulus checks. This time, $1,200 for everybody, including dependents. It was supposed to extend the $600 a week unemployment for another 33 weeks, and some various other things, money for states and hospitals and stuff like that. But unfortunately, the Republicans don't see a need for it. Um,
Well, it's because they're pushing to get everything open back up now.
well, yes, and well, I mean they are.
Now,
They're
granted, the what went through the House actually had a bunch of pork added onto it as well, but that's unfortunately just the case of anytime you get a bill that goes through, if politicians would actually just stop trying to do their thing of getting special interest money and do the thing for dealing with the situation as it stands. Now, this again, this crosses the aisle. It doesn't matter what political party you're involved with. When you try and write a bill, you're going to try and tack a bunch of things onto it. There were a bunch of things even on the Heroes Act as it stood through the House that should never have even been on there. Shouldn't have even been considered. It should have just been a straight, okay, this is what we need to do. We don't need to tack anything else on. But that's not how our system
no.
works, and it hasn't been how our system worked for ever. We've always had those special interests since lobbyists were allowed to even exist. Um, there have been riders on bills since day one. Before something can get turned into law. Um, that's how we get defense spending and stuff like that. Going back to when I was a kid, Star Wars. Reagan wanted to put satellites in space for defense. So where they tacked on most of the money for that was actually unemployment compensation things and a bunch of different bills that passed through the House back then that the Republicans tacked on a whole bunch of additional spending. And I get it. Um, in this particular situation, it should have been thrown out the door. As soon as anybody, there should have been somebody on either side of the aisles that stood up and said, look, you guys are all morons. Stop trying to do this. Let's help the people really, really quickly. It's a global pandemic. It's not going to get any better, and let's fix the screw ups. Now, of course, the CARE Act should have been the same way. That people should have looked at that right off the bat and been like, um, understand what you're trying to do here. Let's get rid of all of this pork. Let's just nail this down and think about this in a common sense point of view. And where I actually minorly disagree with you is that you said nobody pays attention to that. Nobody thought of that. I I disagree with that and say that it's impossible not to have thought of that. Unfortunately, where I think the truth of the matter lies is that the elected officials have never lived, nor would they ever live in a situation to even have to comprehend what the average American has to go through. None of these people in Congress, whether they're House of Representatives or the Senate, has ever lived paycheck to paycheck. Even with uh, what's the young lady from New York? Um,
Um,
like
yeah,
Ocasio-Cortez.
yeah,
Um, while she's got a lot of things, and she's actually had to, oh, she was a bartender in college. Yeah, great. She still comes from a relatively privileged family
yeah.
where, she went to school, paid for by her parents and all this other stuff. And I'm not faulting her for that or anything, but she comes from a relatively privileged situation where that was something available to her that is not available to your average citizen. That the regular person can't afford to go to school in New York City unless they've got some form of financial support from their family. It's not like she busted her ass working minimum wage 9 to 5 jobs for 8 years just to pay for night school to eventually go to college. um, she's never really lived like a lot of us have to live. And everybody that writes the laws and the rules for us also, that doesn't that doesn't apply to them. They've never had to deal with it, so they don't understand. um and they also don't understand that you can't live off of your base pay. If you work at the supermarket, they don't understand that that's not enough to pay all of your bills. They don't get that. Even if you work a full-time job, you can't have a car and a house and pay for your utilities, because if you never pay your utility bills, do you really think somebody in Congress for the last 5, 10 years has actually paid an electric bill?
No, but
They've never even seen their electric bill. Somebody else takes care of that for you. So it's there's a huge disconnect there. So
well, here's
you know
here's my opinion on why that doesn't even matter. The Unfortunately, the fact of the matter is politicians aren't considering the people in any of this.
Yes, AOC. Thank you, Mary Lizzie.
Um,
No, they're not. They're
these
they're they're thinking about all of their spending and all of their pet projects and everything else like
well,
that.
not just that, but the reason for the stimulus, the CARES Act, the first round of stimulus checks, was not for the people. It was to get money into the economy. So the fact of the matter is, where we're at now is Republicans are trying to figure out a way to get money into the economy without giving people money. If they can figure that out, there will be no stimulus check. What Mary's referring to is payroll tax cuts. And it's not something that gets paid back or anything like that. Basically, what that means is it just means that employers pay less in payroll taxes. Uh, that was one somebody's bright idea. They seem to think that if they give businesses payroll tax cuts, then businesses will pay their employees more money.
Yeah, so
Uh,
that
that
comes back to the whole trickle down economics thing, and this is where the GOP has been wrong since the 80s. It's been proven multiple times that trickle down economics does in fact not work.
no,
That if you give the employers or the businesses the money, they never reinvest that money in their employees. They keep it for themselves. They do stock buybacks. They do acquisitions, and what they, they'll better their business. They'll make things better for their profitability, but in turn, they tend to turn around and screw the employees, which is actually, you go back to the big thing of pretty much the murder of organized unions in the United States. The United Auto Workers being the biggest example, that the union busting of the 80s and the trickle down economics of General Motors and Ford and everything else like that, where it was basically, you're lining the fat cat's pockets, and this is really where it comes down to the whole special interest groups, where you have a bunch of people dropping bugs in the ears, saying stuff like that to politicians, that, oh, this will look really good for you because it'll look like you are helping the people, but you're really helping your friends who are dropping millions into your reelection campaigns and stuff like that. Um, and when um, businesses actually don't drive the economy themselves. What really drives the economy is the base spending of your average consumer.
Yep.
So and it showed actually with the first stimulus package, as soon as everybody got their $1,200 check, everybody pretty much, and I'm pulling numbers out of my ass here because I don't have anything firm in front of me at the moment, but roughly 80% of everybody that received that stimulus check in a timely fashion spent it within 5 days. And what they spent it on was not things like you would really imagine. What really surprised a lot of people was the amount of debt pay down. Minor credit card debt was staggering. So many young people in particular went and paid off their Visa bill because they were holding a balance of about $500, $600, $700. So Visa actually didn't know what to do with a lot of these payments. Visa was put in a really strange position of, all of a sudden they had a bunch of debt cleared. So a lot of people had that paid off, but then what they turned around and did was they spent the remaining $500 to $700 on frivolous purchases. And I'll give you a prime example. You guys can't see me right now because I don't have, since I'm not webcammed up on the channel or anything, but I'm holding a PS4 controller right now that is not mine. I have another story. This is all sorts of fun. So I'm a streamer, you guys know, and I play on PlayStation 4. I broke one of my controllers the other day. The left stick has had a left drift for a while, and I was playing Apex Legends a little too aggressively and blew up the left stick on my controller. So the way that I stream, I need to have two controllers functioning at all times, one for the remote play and then the other for the actual gameplay. And when you're trying to do farm sim on PS4, a left stick drift is not really fun to watch because I'll be going down a line of crops and suddenly I've done an L pattern in my field because I've gone left 90 degrees. So Big Papa Timo has to go get a new controller. And so what I did is I got on Walmart.com and I found a great deal on Red Dead Redemption 2 and a controller combo for $38.02.
Nice.
Because, Walmart loves to do those weird numbers, 3802.
Yeah.
So when I do the checkout, it offers me delivery options, one of which is in-store pickup. And I'm like, ooh, I can get in-store pickup today. Awesome. Gonna do it. Don't want to wait 5 to 7 days. I'll get back to chat in 1 second, Mary. Let me finish my yammering and yapping here. So in-store pickup is an option. So I click that and it says, okay, we'll let you know when your order is processed. It should be ready in about 4 hours. Awesome. I can pick up a controller today. This is perfect. This is exactly what I need. I can stream later on this evening with my new controller. Perfect. So I get the email notification that my order is ready. Now, my local Walmart, which is normally open 24/7, is currently only open from 11 a.m. till 7 p.m. so that they can restock and clean the store and everything else like that. And so that's great. It's now noon. I wait an extra hour before I go up there because I ordered this thing at like 6 o'clock in the morning. They tell me it's ready and I go up there. And so this is the first time Big Papa Timo has gone to a retail establishment in 80 days. I've been dreading going to Walmart of all places because if there is going to be a hotbed of Captain Crunch, it's going to be Walmart.
Yeah.
It's the biggest store around me, and people there are dumb in general. I don't have any faith that they're going to be any less dumb, given the current situation. So I go to Walmart. I mask up, I glove up, I've got my hand sanitizer in the car and everything else like that. And I go into the store and I go to the customer service counter because that's where I figure I have to go pick something up. So I'm standing in line with 20 other people. The guy in front of me is trying to return something that he got for Christmas that he doesn't want. There is, I shit you not, a lady up front arguing about trying to return all of the toilet paper she can't return again. Another one of those people.
Yep.
And they're not having it. And then there's 3 people behind me standing in line, no masks. Pennsylvania's got an executive order from the Department of Health that to enter any establishment, you need to wear a mask. How these people are standing in line with no mask on baffles me. Um, yeah, and that's a whole different discussion, but I'm going to glance over that one. But the guy behind me standing there, he's sniffling and wiping his face a lot. Not a good sign. Doesn't help my anxiety. The guy behind him has what appears to be a 5 or 6-year-old child with him, no mask. Little pissed off. Not my place to tell this guy how to parent, but I almost said something to this guy. And then the little old lady behind him, snuffling and sneezing too, no mask. So now I'm sitting there going, well, now I've got a bunch of people with no mask around me and I'm exposed. And so I'm looking around the store and half the employees have a mask on down over their mouth, but not their nose. Defeats the whole purpose of the mask. So these people just don't get it. And this is why I didn't want to come to Walmart. Finally get called up to the counter. The lady asks, what can I do for you? She's really pleasant. She's working at Walmart. She's got her vest on. She's got her mask on. She's behind a plexiglass shield. She's safe from the Captain Crunch. She asks what I'm there for. I tell her I got to pick up, and she's just like, okay, what's your name? What's your receipt? And I show her the thing on the phone. She's like, oh, you need to go over to self-checkout. So I've been standing in line next to all these coughy, sneezy, runny nose people for 20 minutes, and I got to go to a different line. So I go over to the self-checkout, and there's a nice young lady there that I can't tell if she's smiling because I can't see her face, but she looks like she is. She greets me very politely and says, what can I help you with? I said, I have a pickup from electronics. Here's my receipt, and I hold up my phone. And she's like, oh, let's go over here to the lockers, the pickup lockers. She takes me to this little special section. She looks at my thing again, goes, opens the locker, comes back with Red Dead Redemption 2. Say, excuse me, miss, I'm supposed to have a controller with me. And she's like, oh, hold on. She goes and looks back in the bin. There's nothing else in the bin other than, the game was in there. And she looks at her receipt, her pick order. She's like, well, there's no controller on here. So I open my phone and show her what I ordered. Red Dead Redemption 2 and controller 3802. She's like, yeah, that's supposed to have a controller with it. So she calls electronics. Electronics puts her through to the assistant manager. The assistant manager comes over. He's like, what seems to be the problem? I was like, it's not really a problem. It's just supposed to have a controller. He's like, oh, okay. So he pulls up their pick order. He's like, no, this is just for a game. So I show him the same thing. I was like, no, game, controller. He's like, well, let's see what's going on. After some fiddling around, come to find out that now I have a huge problem with what I'm about to say here. Walmart.com sold me a game and a controller for in-store pickup. They accepted my money. When they transferred the order to the actual store, they deleted the controller from the order. They put through an order for just Red Dead Redemption 2 at the same price. This is the legal definition of a bait and switch.
Yes.
Plain and simple. They sold me a product and refused to deliver. Now, I don't fault my store. I don't fault any of the employees for the actions that they tried to take and everything. They were actually trying to be really, really helpful. But Walmart engaged in a bait and switch operation, which really, really pisses me off. So needless to say, they don't have a controller for my order. The assistant manager is struggling to try and figure out a way to make this right. So he's like, all right, first off, he's like, so were you really interested in the game or were you more interested in the controller? I was like, actually, I was more interested in the controller. At that price, he's like, yeah, that's actually a really good price. He's like, are you a gamer? I was like, actually, I'm a streamer. He's like, oh, really? What's your gamer tag? And I was like, Big Papa Timo Gaming. He's like, no shit, I've seen your page. Okay. So the guy at Walmart has seen Big Papa Timo Gaming's page, which is actually kind of funny. I was like, well, do you follow? He's like, well, no. I was like, then how did you find my page? He's like, well, I was looking for streamers in Johnstown and I came across yours. I was like, why aren't you a follower? He's like, well, I don't like farm sim. Okay. That's fine. But he knew who I was, which was kind of funny. It was a little, hey, I'm almost famous at Walmart moment. But so he's trying to figure out what to do. So he's like, let's go back to electronics and see what we have. He's like, worst case, we'll cancel your order and then rerun your order through again, and we'll get you something. Or if you just want the controller, I can give you 50% off any of the controllers we have back there. I'm like, okay, well that's actually a good deal too. A controller for 35 bucks as opposed to um, I really didn't want Red Dead Redemption 2, but it was just going to be like an added bonus. So we go back there, and there are 0 PlayStation 4 controllers in the electronics department. There are 2 aftermarket third-party controllers there at $180 a piece.
Ouch.
Yeah, they are first-person shooter specials that have like all the triggers and
Oh,
mapping
okay, yeah.
and everything else like that. So it's got like uber sensitive sights and it's basically, aimbot in a controller.
Yeah.
And I don't want one of those, but it was a working controller. So I'm looking, I was like, 180 bucks, it's 90 bucks if you give me half off. He's like, yeah, that's kind of the best I can do on that. I was like, no. He's like, well, I don't know what to do at this point in time. I was like, I need a controller. I said, you guys sold me a controller in a game at 3802. I expect a controller. Yeah, wow, ouch. Total expensive things. Um, so he's looking up, he's frantically trying to figure out now. Like I said, this guy is trying to be helpful. He's trying to get a controller in my hand that day because he knows that that's the whole reason. And I told him basically, this is the first time I've left the house. I'm immunocompromised. This is bullshit. This is not how this is all supposed to work. And he gets it, and he's trying to help. Um, so he eventually says, well, why don't we just cancel your order? And they've already canceled my order and refunded my money while I was waiting about, which was cool. I mean, it was instant. I got my money back. There was no dickering about waiting a day or two to get the charge back or anything. They got me my money immediately, which was, fine. Um, he's like, how about this? He's like, I think we've got some vouchers in the back room. I can get you a voucher for 50% off your next online order. And you can just order it online and have it shipped. He said, I know it's not the preferable thing for you because you need a controller today, but maybe they can get you one relatively quickly. He says, it looks like it's going to be anywhere between 3 and 7 days before they can ship you anything anyways, because he's looking it up online. I'm like, all right, that's better than nothing. So he goes back in the office, comes back out and has this weird look on his eyes because I can't see his whole face because he's wearing a mask. Um, he comes back, he's like, I hate to tell you this, but we don't even have those vouchers in the system right now. Apparently there are so many screwed up online orders that the company has stopped making amends with the half off your next online order because
Ouch.
they were losing so much money because they were screwing so much up and giving half off. Um, he's like, so I can't even give you that. And I'm like, well, I've got this dejected look on my eyes now because I'm pretty much thinking I'm getting screwed here. He's like, the best I can do for you. He hands me a gift card. He's like, here's 25 bucks, $25 gift card. You've already got your money back in your account, so you're good to go. So we basically just paid you 25 bucks to show up and not get what you want. I'm like, okay, I can't argue with this kid trying to help me out. He just paid me $25 to go to Walmart, and I got paid 25 bucks an hour to stand there and not get what I wanted. Excuse me. So now my next thing is, what do I do for a controller? because my controller's not working. Um, I don't know what kind of controller it was. It was in a locked container, Mary, and at $180, I was not interested at all.
Yeah.
Um, so I go out and I get in my car, and there's a GameStop nearby, and I pull up to the GameStop, and they've got this big sign on the door that says, um, "Door delivery only. Here's our phone number. Call us for any questions." So I call, ask the guy, "You got any PlayStation 4 controllers?" He giggles, says, "Nope." I said, "Do you guys have anything?" He's like, "Well, we have something that you can order and we can actually next day it, but it's a used controller. It's a used PS4 controller and it is $80.
Jeez.
It's in Jacksonville, Florida, and they can overnight it to me. So that would cost like an extra $35 to overnight. A used controller for higher than an MSRP. No, not going to do that. So there's a Best Buy in this shopping center too. So I drive over to Best Buy. They are doing curbside pickup. So I pull up to the curb and a guy comes out. He's wearing mask, full protective gear. He gets out and says, "Hey, do you have a pickup?" "No, but I wanted to ask you a question." I was like, "Do you guys have any PS4 controllers?" He says, "No, we don't. Sorry, sir. We're out of stock." Doesn't look at anything. Doesn't try and look anything up. And so I apparently I got this confused look in my eyes, like you're not the first person to ask me that today. I've already checked. "I appreciate that, buddy. Do you guys have any that I can order?" He said, "The closest one we have." Now he is not even looking at his little computer thing. He is reciting this because he's already been through this with other people, apparently. The closest one that Best Buy has to me is in Minnesota, which is their corporate offices and their main distribution center. That it could be to me within 3 to 5 business days. And the price on a new controller is like $85, which not too bad. The regular price on a new controller is, what is it, $65 right now?
Yeah, something like that.
Um, so not too shabby, but it's still delivery. But no new controllers to be said. So getting back to the whole point of everything was that um, with the spending of the stimulus money, so many people have upgraded or bought gaming supplies, streaming supplies, what have you. Some of the hardest things to find to buy in the United States right now are gaming consoles, gaming controllers, webcams, tablets, PCs, all sorts of different stuff. There's a huge shortage on all the things that streamers need to do their job as a streamer because everybody else is doing it too. There was so much frivolous purchases
Well,
or discretionary spending with the stimulus
they
that it actually did exactly what the intent was. That was to put money back into the economy. Sorry, what were you about to say?
I was just gonna say that they said the number one retailer that people spent most of their stimulus money was Best Buy.
Yeah, that's a perfect example of, you buy a new TV, you buy a new PC. I've got literally 100 people on my friends list that as soon as they got that $1,200 stimulus check, they bought an $1,100 PC. They bought that gaming rig that they've been trying to get forever, or they did a graphics card upgrade and a memory upgrade on their existing unit or something like that. You can't find a Ryzen 7 anywhere in the United States right now. They're overseas third-party transports at this point in time. So many of these things are just MIA because the stimulus package actually did exactly what it should do, and that is stimulate the economy by putting money back into retail sales. What it didn't do is benefit the businesses that the Republicans thought it was going to. It didn't help out some of the bigwigs that thought they were going to get paid by people getting money. So that's why there's an opposition to another round of stimulus money. It's rather send people back out to work so that they actually start buying the things that they're supposed to. Well, it's not Congress's job to tell us what we're supposed to buy.
Well, and here's the other problem with that: the flawed logic of putting people back to work will boost the economy. Um, Georgia's a prime example. Georgia has been completely open for 3 weeks now, and they're operating at about 6%. People don't want to go outside. People don't want to spend money. So if you take that manufacturing job and you put that person back to work, but there's no demand for his product, what is he doing? Why is he back to work but not making anything? Now his employer is spending money to pay him to be back at work, but the employer's not making any money because nobody's buying that product. That's the Republicans' idea, is to put people back to work will boost the economy. There's two problems with that. One, like I said, if there's no demand, supply is irrelevant. And two is the time frame.
Mm-hmm.
The time frame on something like that for the economy to recover is in the neighborhood of 3 to 5 years.
Yep.
Whereas if you, just like the first round of stimulus, if you put money into the hand of someone that spends it, okay, so for every dollar that you spend, that dollar goes into the economy 5.5 times. So for every $1 you spend, the economy gets boosted by $5.5. So you put money into people's hands that are going to spend it. Granted, they're not going to spend it on big things because, let's be honest, it's $1,200. Nobody's going out and buying a car.
Nope.
But you do have people that are spending on everyday items. Fast food restaurants, Walmart, Best Buy, stuff like that. Now the problem with the whole Best Buy situation was go into a Best Buy and try and find something that's made in the US. It's practically impossible.
Yeah, same thing with Walmart.
So basically, those types of stores aren't benefiting the economy right now because all of their products come from overseas. The reason you see the shortage in electronics is because we don't have anything coming in from overseas. We don't have
So
any.
let's touch on that real quick because I actually want to bring up an interesting point. So the PS5, the new PlayStation, and the new Xbox were originally slated for October delivery.
Yes.
Probably not going to happen now. The reason being is they haven't manufactured very many of them yet. The prototypes are out there. The alpha versions of the PS5s are available, and they were mainly sent to game developers to do things like, I don't know if you guys saw the new Unreal Engine, the Unreal 5. Looks amazing. Oh my god, the graphics that this thing produces are stunning. But the memory sticks for the PS5, which is the biggest point of contention on what the pricing is going to be, because as we in the industry know that, the price of memory in particular goes up as the year goes on. Come August, you have about the highest prices every year on memory for production.
Can I interrupt you?
Yeah, go for it.
I just want to welcome Marissa Stewart to the Reaper Nation.
Hey, Marissa.
There's the Dancing
Welcome,
Reaper.
Marissa. Dancer Reaper. Nice.
Thanks
Perfect.
for the subscription.
Heck yeah. So, the production of the memory for the PS5 was slated to start this summer. The manufacturing facility for the company that Sony was going to use, I shit you not, is in Wuhan, China. They're not producing anything. They're not working right now. So you're going to have a continued breakdown in supply chain on a lot of things. And this is just, it's one example. I'm not saying that this is the most important one. We have a lot of other supply chain issues that are going to come down the pike real soon that are going to be much more catastrophic. But this is something that we online can actually understand very easily. So we're all looking forward to the new PlayStation coming out or the new Xbox coming out for traditionally what is the booming time for our economy, which is October through December. And Black Friday being, day after Thanksgiving being the biggest one of them. So a lot of things are not going to be available come that time because future production of stuff is in jeopardy right now. Something that's closer to home in the way of supply chain that's actually much more important. A lot of people have started to see the articles about um, like cattle growers and pig growers and chicken producers actually slaughtering and disposing of pigs in particular, because the growth cycle is very, very quickly. And where the problem is the slaughterhouses are shutting down because they were deemed essential and pretty much told that they had to stay open at the beginning, and they couldn't take any additional precautions to protect their employees. You have too many employees too close together, um, working in small clusters, tight knit communities, and stuff like that. So if you have a facility with, say, 2,000 employees working in a slaughterhouse, they're starting to show infection rates of 600 people,
Yep.
and slaughterhouses are shuttering their doors. Most of the actual slaughterhouses in the United States right now are operating at very minimum capacity or have actually shut their doors because too many people are sick. So that's why you have the price of ground beef went from 2.99 a pound to, I think it's currently 5.99 a pound is the national average, which is about to hit 8.99 a pound um, for ground beef.
Yeah.
Now these producers for pigs, basically with the growth rate of pigs, they can't afford to feed pigs if they're not going to make any money from selling them to slaughterhouses. So they're pretty much just putting them down. So a lot of people are going, well, why are you doing this? You're just throwing away perfectly good meat. Well, yeah, they have to because it won't make it to your table. It's not that we have a trucking issue. We don't have a trucking issue at all. The trucking suppliers are still hauling. Tragic is a prime example. He's been working the whole time. He has no shortage of deliveries to make. They're still moving all the stuff across the country. That's all going fine. So the actual distribution chain is fine. It's the production chain that's breaking down.
Yeah.
And
It's
not
the
only,
supply.
it starts in the food. The supply is there, the demand is there. It's the production aspect that is starting to lag and lag. So you have this push to get a lot of these businesses to go back up and get up and running because a lot of people are looking at the future. The unfortunate thing is they're not looking at the current situation. How do you fix what's wrong right now? Don't worry about fixing what's going to be wrong in 3 months. That is a major concern. What are we going to be at 3 months from now? But this is where I've always had the problem that, they make these decisions and they try and help people for the future. That's great, but people are going to start going hungry real soon if they're not already. If you got laid off and you're making $600 a week, that's great, but there's still so many people out there that have not gotten their stimulus check.
And that don't
You know, they they
qualify.
they well, or even if they do, I mean, if you qualify for the stimulus check, but you're still working, or you got laid off or something like that, and you're not making you got denied for your unemployment, or even if you got accepted for your unemployment. um I'm going to use a person. Actually, I'm pretty sure she's even been on the mid-lunch crisis before. You guys probably know Rainbow.
Yeah.
Rainbow's jumped in here a couple times before. She's local to me. She lives down around the Pittsburgh area. She works for Panera Bread. She's a nighttime baker. So Panera shut down with the order for Pennsylvania to shutter non-essential businesses. And she went back to work 2 weeks ago. She started work 2 weeks ago. Now, here's how Rainbow got screwed. She applied for unemployment compensation, and it took Pennsylvania forever to get back to her and tell her that she actually qualifies for unemployment, as in she found out last week she qualifies for unemployment. She's been trying to do unemployment for 8 weeks now. Now she makes roughly, she does better than minimum wage, but not much. And she hasn't been receiving any unemployment compensation for over 8 weeks. She doesn't work, so she's not getting paid. She doesn't get unemployment compensation, so she's got no money. She's had no income for 8 weeks. She goes back to work 2 weeks ago. Now, her employer has been paying her COBRA payment on her health insurance the whole time. So when she goes back to work and gets 2 weeks worth of pay, this is really going to kind of bite you guys in the ass. Her paycheck was for $21. 2 weeks worth of work, full time, regular schedule, $21, because they took her COBRA payments
All out.
for the health insurance all out all at once, as they are legally entitled to do. There is nothing for that. So in the last 9 weeks, she's been told that she finally qualifies for unemployment. She'll get back paid for it and everything else like that. But she got the same kind of letter that I did. Oh, you qualify for this, but they haven't given her a PIN yet. So
Which,
she can't file her biweekly. She doesn't even have a card or anything to draw on anything. So this girl has had no money for 8 weeks.
and unfortunately, she's not. Unfortunately, that's kind of the normal. Um, she's not alone. There are
Not at
millions.
all.
There are millions of people in that same situation, and that's kind of what irks me so bad with the second round of stimulus. Um, as it stands right now, we're not looking at possible payment until probably August.
Yeah. That doesn't do anybody good now.
No.
Like I said, it's great that they're looking towards future stuff, but people need money and food now. Right now, like literally right now. So here in Johnstown they had a couple businesses came together and donated a ton of food for local distribution, where you could go up and go to the local mall here at Johnstown, the Johnstown Galleria, and you could get 2 boxes of food. And it was things like, rice-a-roni and, non-perishables, a bunch of canned foods and stuff, basic food bank type stuff, supplies that everybody needs and everything. People sat in line for 6 hours to receive their 2 boxes per car food, which was great that some companies came together to make these donations. There were so many people that they ran out of food before even moving the lines. They basically went down the line and delivered this giant, a full-size tractor trailer packed to the lid with boxes of food for everybody, and they basically delivered to 25% of the people there. So 75% of the people waiting in line that actually need food. Now I'm assuming all these people need these supplies and are having troubles and struggles. I'm doing the whole, humanity's goods,
Yeah.
and there was nobody waiting in line that didn't really need this. Because honestly, I didn't go, because we're surviving. We're not doing well, but we're surviving. There are people that I know need this a lot more than we do, because we have some household income. Um, and I don't want to be a drain on something. I don't want to be the cause of some little kid not having food to eat.
Yeah.
Uh, could we use it? Hell yeah, we could use it. We're struggling, but we're surviving. So better off somebody else gets it. So I'm assuming they all did this, but that shows you right off the bat that there are so many people that are in need right now. Right now, they need to do something that is immediate and concise and fixes these things.
Let me interject here. I just want to say hi to Beffels. Welcome
Hey,
home mystery.
Beffels.
And Dave
What's up, Dave
Monte
Monty?
as well.
Dropping the Oreos.
Yeah. And unfortunately, this is really where you see, like I said, the politicians are not looking to help the people. it's all about the economy. Yes,
Yeah.
if we get stimulus checks in August, it will temporarily boost the economy, and that's what they're looking at. But unfortunately, uh, you have people that can't survive until August.
Exactly.
You know, we're still the end of May. That's 3 months away. Of 3 more months of people not being able to afford to feed their families. And unfortunately, now my wife just mentioned this yesterday. I haven't had a chance to fact check it yet, but um, maybe you might know, Timo, is she said that Governor Wolf lifted the restriction on evictions. So,
Oh, I don't know about that or not. That would be catastrophic. That would be
yes.
catastrophic. Because
Uh,
the point of contention that I've always had is that the moment, you have all these programs. One of the other things, actually, since you bring that up, the FCC program that prevents that requires like local cable companies to continue to provide services without interruption. That FCC regulation ends the end of the month.
yeah.
So starting June 1st, your local cable company can turn off your cable for non-payment. That wouldn't surprise me if it would surprise me if Wolf lifted the eviction restriction, but I've always made the point of contention that the moment these companies that have been told you can't shut off service for non-payment, the moment that they're allowed to, they're going to.
Oh yeah.
Your power company, if you haven't paid your power, they're going to turn your power off. Water, they're going to turn your water off. Gas, they're going to turn your gas off. Cable, they're going to turn your cable off. If your landlord who hasn't been paid in 4 months can't collect their rent, they're going to evict. Um, yeah, it's just that's the nature of business. It's horrible to think about, and here's where I have the biggest problem because I can totally understand a landlord's perspective or a property owner's perspective of not getting paid for 4 months and still having to pay their things because everybody goes, well, you can't evict and they've frozen all the mortgage payments. All right, well, they froze federally insured mortgage payments or federal program mortgage insurance, not private mortgages. So if I had a mortgage through Nations Bank or Capital One or One Main Financial or something like that, they're not required to cease taking my mortgage payments. And even if they were, if that restriction stops, then they could foreclose on my property. So it's a crap way of trying to force people to actually spend money where they want. And this comes back to the whole people spent that $1,200 on things that nobody expected them to. The government thought they would put it back into things like paying their mortgage or stimulating the bank economy, the financial economy, and everybody was really thinking about themselves. They went to Best Buy instead. So if that is possible, if Wolf did in fact lift that, there's going to be mass evictions coming up or mass filings for evictions.
And
That would
unfortunately,
be bad.
Mary's correct. There was no rent um, clause or anything in the first stimulus package. Now the second one, there is um, a section for rent and mortgage forbearance, where you can ask for up to 360 days of rent or mortgage forbearance, and the companies are required to give it.
Now here's a problem with that. The thing that they have to bear in mind is um, again getting back to the whole economic impact of everything. So if they give your average American forbearance on their mortgage or their rent, you have to have some form of payment involved to those that would have been receiving that money. Now, you also have to bear in mind that not every mortgage is through a government institution, and not every mortgage is through a banking institution, and that not all rent goes through a major corporation, and that a lot of small individuals actually are the landlords on those things. So if you forgive, say, Big Papa Timo's rent, you forgive my rent on my house, you have to make sure that you pay the person that I was paying rent to do it. So if I don't have to pay, somebody's got to pay them because they have bills involved with owning and operating this particular property. Even if you forgive their mortgage on the property, um, they still have other expenses, insurance, maintenance, all those other things. So this comes back to the whole, when they write these pieces of legislation, they don't think everything through. The biggest problem I think we had with the CARES Act was that it didn't put any oversight in place for who distributed funds. You made this bill for all this money to go out to the people and everybody gets a stimulus check, but who's in charge of distributing that money and are they prepared to do it? And then, it showed off right off the bat that they had forgotten about a whole bunch of people, self-employed people in particular, with the payroll protection programs. That was a huge debacle. That money went to all the wrong places. That, they said that certain things were going to happen. They didn't actually happen because they didn't have the oversight for a lot of things.
Well, and the SBC was a prime example. Um, the CARES Act specifically said that businesses were eligible to apply for three different assistance packages. You had the payroll protection plan, which basically said you apply for this, we give you money, you use it to pay your payroll while your employees are staying home. You had the $1,000 per employee grant that should have went out to everybody. Owners were included. And then you had the EIDL, which is the loan that you applied for.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the grant, as you very well know, didn't get paid to a lot of people. Basically, what the SBC started doing was, if you didn't qualify for the loan, you didn't get the grant either. And that's what happened in your situation.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing that they did was, Congress said that the loans could be up to $2 million. The EIDL. The first thing the SBC did was limit those loans to $10,000. Then when that came out and all the news outlets made a big stink over it, the SBC secretly, or tried to secretly, up that to $150,000 with an internal memo, which also specifically said that they weren't allowed to tell anybody about it. And that memo came out, and Congress sent a couple letters to the SBC, but basically told them to stop their shenanigans. The letter of the law said this, and that's what they need to follow. Because the SBC just did whatever they wanted. They took that money. They said they ran out, which then, in fact, it came out that they didn't run out. And Congress said, well, if you were going to run out, all you had to do was request more. But that's a prime example of the mishandling of all of the funds. When they passed the CARES Act, they basically said, okay, we're going to give everybody all this money. What they didn't do is figure out how. Yeah. And that's why you still have people 2 months later haven't received their first stimulus check. Now, one of the things that the Treasury has done in the last week was they started issuing debit cards.
Yep.
Uh,
The U.S.
to
bank cards.
Yep, to two locations. To taxes that have been filed in Austin, Texas, and
Boston, Massachusetts.
yeah. So they're issuing up to 4 million cards for the stimulus check, which is great. It's another way to get people money. But again, we're 2 months past. Where was this 2 months ago?
Now, it's also pretty interesting to think about why they chose those two locations. So you have the Northeast, you have the Massachusetts area. Now, if those taxes were processed there, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's where you live, but you live in relatively close proximity to those areas. So the Austin, Texas takes care of a vast majority of the southern United States, including almost the entire state of Texas. Houston, Dallas, Austin, they all fall under that location. And then Boston, Massachusetts one does not do New York State, but what it does is the rest of the Northeast. So they targeted areas that were major metropolitan areas that had a lot of people. And they are target demographics of voters that they're trying to get. Um, this is going to sound horrible, but um, they targeted two groups of people that are lagging from supporting the GOP. Um, Traditionally, the Northeast is liberal and democratic, so you go after a bunch of people that really are not happy with the GOP and give them money and try and make it sound like, hey, we're the ones helping you. And then you target the African American population of the South in places where you can, and a bunch of disenfranchised ranchers in particular, people that are traditionally pro GOP that have been royally screwed, where they've done everything that they were asked, they've done everything that they were told, and their businesses, these are the guys that actually grow pigs, cattle, and chickens that are starving, that are they're literally, these people are destroying their animals because they can't sell them. So you have a bunch of disenfranchised people are targeted with this. So get them their money as fast as you can. Even though it's, like you said, it's been 2 months. So a lot of people are hugely struggling right now. Um, and it's still the same thing where they're still playing political games with people's well-being. It's deplorable in a lot of ways.
Fortunately, I mean it's going to sound bad, but fortunately the Republicans are really mucking up the second package. With this whole wait and see thing, they're not even going to negotiate until the third week of June. They hope to pass it before July break. People aren't stupid. Right now, the Republicans control the Senate. They're going to find that this whole wait and see thing that they've got going on right now is going to bite them really hard. Because bottom line is, people are going to look at it and say, okay, Democrats passed this in the House, and Republicans waited 3 months. Now, I say that, I mean, it's unfortunate that that is happening, but it's fortunate that hopefully when elections come, people remember, and like Mary said, maybe we can get some more down to earth people in Congress.
Unfortunately, see, I have to make a disagreement on it with you. People are stupid.
Well,
and people forget, and people believe what they want to believe, and regardless of what anybody says, you still have people don't listen to facts. They listen to what they believe the facts should be when thinking about things. Now, as far as the elections go, on a lower level, Congress, House of Representatives, and the Senate, we may have a huge turnover in who gets elected, and maybe we'll get a couple down to earth people. Um, but traditionally, neighbors honking their horn dramatically. Traditionally, people that go out and crusade for the people get squashed very quickly within government, because they don't gain support. Either they don't get reelected. They try and do things, and their bills and recommendations all fail because they can't garner support from the higher ups. And again, I can't say that one party's any better than another at this, because they both serve a different purpose. No politician is for the people. They're for their own reelections. Even people like AOC is a prime example that, she came out swinging real hard on, what she wanted to do for the people, and she realized really, really quickly that, while her goals might have been well founded, she met opposition even from within her own party. The people that are supposed to champion the same beliefs that she was just she was too aggressive with it, and she got told right off the bat, you know, simmer down a little bit. You're going too hard, too fast. You're not, this is not how things work. You have to play the game. And she's mellowed out a lot. You don't see a lot of articles about her these days. She's not pushing a lot of stuff like she was at the beginning, because she's learned, if she wants to stick around, if she wants to get reelected, to do some greater good in the end, she's got to play the game. And unfortunately, the game is screw the people, serve the politicians type of stuff. But people are, in fact, forgive me for saying this, everybody, people are in fact dumb. People forget. The sheer fact that they're putting their hopes and dreams on politicians to save them, when traditionally politicians have never tried to save the people. Not in the last 100 years. The last time we had, uh, like an actual true act of Congress that was for the greater good of everybody was World War II. And prior to that, the Great Depression. Other than that, everything's been screwed up, across the board. Um,
Mary.
and it's unfortunate, and it's surprising, and it leads us to the position we're currently in. We put ourselves here, plain and simple. You can't necessarily blame the politicians for being the evil bastards that they are, when we are in fact the ones that elected them.
Mary's comment made me laugh. She said it's why Bernie will never be chosen. Corporate Democrats. No, Bernie won't be chosen because he's a socialist. There's a big difference.
There's Bernie won't be chosen because he doesn't fit the party bill. Yeah, and being a socialist has a lot to do with that. But um, he's unelectable as a Democrat because he doesn't play the Democrats' game. He's always distanced himself from the Democratic convention, and they hate him for it. And the common voter doesn't understand that. Why not pick Bernie? He's so popular. He's popular with young voters for sure. He's hated within the political parties.
Well, and I really try not to get political, but
I gotta address Mary's question, because Husby's asked if Big Papa Team ever got a controller. So the general answer is yes and no at the same time. So, to explain, did I get a new controller? No, I did not. I still have yet to order one online for delivery, but my eldest daughter, who is actually, if you guys remember when I first started streaming, and I first started playing No Man's Sky, I was using my daughter's PS4. Now, my daughter has recently moved out of the house. She got herself her own apartment, and she also is part of the PC master race now in the way of gaming. But she actually doesn't stream anymore, which is disappointing. Um, she provided me with one of her controllers yesterday. The controller that I'm actually using right now is borrowed from my eldest daughter, because she has 4 controllers that all work just fine that
Oh.
she's not using.
Oh
So I'm using
no.
one of hers.
Mary, you did not.
Which is what I was saying. What is so wrong with being socialist? Socialism is not communism. No, it's not. Socialism is not communism, but therein lies the whole getting back to the I told you people are stupid. Um, People don't understand. Well, see, you also let me give you the first problem. Americans think we live in a democracy. We do not. We live in a democratic republic. This is not a democracy. It has never been a democracy. Yes, the people elect their representatives. That's not a democracy. That's a republic. Um, we do not have the rights that we think we do. And to give you a prime example of another example of people being stupid, where everybody goes, well, I shouldn't have to wear a mask. It's my right. No, you have zero right to not wear a mask. That is not a constitutionally guaranteed thing. Um, your constitutional rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, the Bill of Rights and everything, in no way extends beyond the fact that you yourself, um, you do have certain inalienable rights unless something is going on that takes away those rights. Um, a pandemic qualifies for that. State of emergency grants special powers. Martial law grants special powers. Now, these powers all go away, and your civil liberties do return after, guaranteed by law. But I'm gonna use the mask thing because this is actually a super hot button topic, particularly locally. We have a ton of people that very vocally complain about having to wear a mask in public places or private businesses. And this is the common misconception. The grocery store is in fact not you have no right to go to the grocery store. You do not have the right to go to the grocery store. Going to the grocery store is in fact a privilege. Um, so when there is a big sign at your local grocery store that says you must wear a mask to enter this establishment, you have no right to refuse that. The grocery store has every right to refuse to service you. If you don't wear a mask, they can tell you you can't come in here. But I have a right to food. No, you don't. Show me in the Constitution where it says Randy's Bilo has to sell you food. It's not there. It's not even in the state constitution. They have every right to tell you you can't shop here. This is a private business. If you don't like that, go someplace else. That's the right you have. You have the right to take your business elsewhere, but you don't have the right to endanger other people. So if somebody tells you you can't shop here unless you wear a mask and you refuse to wear the mask, guess what? You should be kicked the hell out. What are you going to do? Call the police? Here's another thing. The police? Nah, they don't do what you think they're supposed to do either. The police don't have a requirement to serve and protect. The police are there to enforce laws. Now, unfortunately, police forces don't understand the laws. It is not their job to interpret the laws. That is the job of the courts. Their job is to simply enforce them. So when a police officer is called because you got kicked out of the local supermarket, they probably, in fact, know that you don't have the right to not wear a mask. And they're going to tell you, "Sorry about your luck, get the hell out." But your average American thinks that since we live in the land of liberty and all this other stuff, that we have certain inalienable rights that they are within their rights to refuse these things. Those are entitlements. They're not rights.
I need to address Mary's comment about socialism.
Go for it.
Okay, so a lot of 90% of Bernie supporters don't exactly understand what socialism is. What they want is they want democratic socialism. They want some aspects of socialism, but they want to retain their freedoms. They want to retain capitalism. Unfortunately, that is not the case. Socialism, basically, like you were saying, private. You you can't go into a grocery store and have the right not to wear a mask. Under socialism, that grocery store owner doesn't have the right to tell you can't wear a mask. Because even though that is his grocery store, that is his livelihood, that is his money, he's not in charge. The government is in charge. It is socialism is takes the ownership and control away from the private citizen and puts it in the hands of, the definition says community, but it's government. Basically, whoever's in power, whoever has the most money calls the shots, kind of thing. So, what's wrong with socialism? Everything's wrong with socialism. You can't have it both ways. You can't have your freedoms. You can't own your house that you live in and have socialism. It just doesn't work. You either get one or the other.
Now, the common misconception is that is communism. That's not communism. And the reason the common misconception is that is communism is because we grew up in an era where we mistook one type of government for another.
Yes.
Growing up during the Red Threat, Russia, the communist Russia and communist China and everything, that's not communism either. Those are more like hardline socialist governments, which socialism really comes down to a dictatorship, but it's a dictatorship for the people. The problem that we also have is the world has never seen, within recorded history, a true socialist government or a true democratic government or a true communist government. We have the misconception that these forms of government have existed.
No.
And the ironic thing is we've just had variations of pretty much the same thing. Whether it's a democratic monarchy of Great Britain, the Democratic Republic that is the United States, the People's Republic of China, which is what we consider a communist government, the Democratic Socialist government of, Sweden? Something up in...
Dave Monte's comment that normally they treat the people better. Have you not seen history? Even though we are in a democratic republic of the United States, there's a reason that millions of people try to move here every year. Socialism, the various forms of socialism that have existed are not, they're not for the people. They don't treat the people better. Look at Russia as a prime example. Those people, the poverty.
That's a democratic oligarchy, by the way.
That's kind of funny. But the poverty level in a socialist country. Let me rephrase that. Not the poverty level. The what do I want to say?
Economic repression.
The economic repression, but also the gap between the upper class and the lower class is so much greater. The poor are much poorer. The rich are much richer. So is healthcare.
Leave the healthcare alone for a minute. We'll get to healthcare for all in a minute.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, unfortunately, um, to expand on Timo's comment, recorded history has actually never seen um, socialism in any form actually be successful. Uh, but in addition to that, they also have never seen democracy be successful,
or communism for that matter.
or communism.
So
The only
let me touch on something real quick here, and this is going to blow everybody's minds right off the bat. The truly ironic thing is the purpose of communism, socialism, and democracy are all actually one and the same. Those three forms of government boil down to the same thing. It is the benefit of the community in every sense of the word. Socialism is for the people, communism is for the people, and democracy is for the people. It's just a question of how is the by the people established through those three. And that's why we've never seen any of those three forms of government. Because government in and of itself is not for the people. Sorry, didn't mean to
oh no, go
stall you
no.
on that one.
Um, I was
Go
just
ahead.
going to say that the most successful form of government that we have that recorded history has ever seen is a monarchy. Um, Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. I mean, if you look at China, up until recently, fairly recently, I guess, you have the Emperor of China, thousands of years. That, according to, how do I want to put this? On paper, that government was the most successful. It was the longest lasting, uh, most successful form of government that recorded history has ever seen.
Followed closely by the Japanese.
Yes. The advent of democracy, although it's not new, uh, it gets regurgitated with various changes, but it always falls. Socialism gets regurgitated with various changes. It always falls. Unfortunately, we actually haven't seen true communism, um, but the socialism slash communism that we have seen also falls. Now you,
Getting back to my original or my other statement of how it's ironic that people mistake those different things. So uh, here in the States, we like to think that we live in a democracy, and democracy is supposed to be the purest form of by the people for the people. Ironically, it's not. Communism is the purest form of for the people by the people. That's where everybody gets to have a say in everything, and it's for the equal benefit of everyone. Where you don't have rich, you don't have poor, you have one communal government. That's where you get communism from, where everybody benefits from the actions of everybody else. So if somebody can't work, everybody else takes care of them. In democracy, everybody's working for their own personal benefit, but also for the benefit of the community. And in socialism, you're working for the benefit of the government that's going to take care of you in your time of needs. That's really how the definitions of all those three come down. And then getting back to what Reaper was saying, the Chinese were by far the longest lasting form of a good government that actually worked for a very long period of time. Sure, you had ultra rich people, you had ultra poor people and everything, but you had a government that came together to keep the purity of their people together for so long. And it lasted literally for thousands of years. That the people felt that their leader was, and this is also very important because, again, people are dumb. Uh, the right to rule the people, the right of the emperor, was a divine right. It was something bestowed on that individual by a deity. That the reason they were in charge was they had some form of holy power. They were the best person for the job because God willed it, basically. And you've had this multiple times, and a lot of governments have tried to emulate that. Um, and we look at it and go, well, nowadays that's just wrong. That's why so many people have the mistaken belief that Islamic nations are so wrong because you have all these people with the mistaken belief that Allah wills it, that um, the Islamic faith is what drives these people. That's not necessarily the case, though. You don't have a lot of, while you have religious leaders in charge, they don't tend to state that they have the divine right to rule their people. Um, the people of those nations tend to believe that their rulers, their leaders, are the best ones because they are holier than the common people. They're not prophets, they're not messiahs or anything, but they're holy men. That they're trained in the ways of the religion, therefore they have a better idea of how to do things in their God's eyes. The monarchies have been very, very successful, and the emperors have been very, very successful because one person makes all the decisions. And that's why I think that's why we have so many problems in our current form of government because our current leader feels that that's the type of government we should have. They should be in charge. They know better than everybody else, regardless of what anybody tells them. They're going to make the right decision that's going to better them, their friends, and everybody else. um, now traditionally we've never had a government last in recorded history longer than the Chinese, and then, like I said, followed closely by the Japanese, who also had an emperor, and they also believed that their ruler, their emperor, was given that power by divine right. Um, and when the people believe that this person knows better than they do because of some divine intervention, uh, it's kind of goofy. But yeah, socialism and communism and democracy are all really closely tied together. We just we don't understand, and we don't actually practice those things. Those are not the forms of government we actually make. We mislabel things all the time because we're humans and we're dumb.
Now, Dave,
Um,
Dave, the healthcare for all.
Healthcare for all.
Yes.
All right, so you want to know if healthcare for all is socialist? No, healthcare for all is actually a communist belief. That is something that benefits everybody and is paid for by everybody. Can socialism use that tenet? Sure. So can democracy. If everybody believes that that is the best solution, it fits under all three forms of government. The mistaken belief that that is a socialistic tenet mainly comes from the fact that most democratic socialist governments in existence right now practice it, is where that misapprehension comes from. Wasn't India like that until the British came along? Yes and no. So India, I'm going to touch on that one. India was not a unified front, and I'll give you a prime example. Um, Everybody here has heard of Pakistan. Do you know how long Pakistan's been in existence? 70 years. Pakistan is not an old country. Pakistan used to be part of India. Um, the Indian subcontinent used to be what we considered one whole nation. It was basically just a way of saying, okay, there's this huge chunk of land that is full of lots and lots of different groups of people that all hold similar beliefs. Normally variations of the same religion, and they live geographically in certain areas. So while the genetic makeup of Pakistanis and Indian subcontinent people are is very, very closely related. They hold vastly different political, economic, and religious beliefs. Um, and India was basically a loose conglomeration of a large chunk of different people. Now, China has a similar issue, but um, China was always considered one nation uh, because they were all for the same beliefs. They all held roughly the same, not quite religious beliefs, but socioeconomic beliefs. So they were always much more unified than India. But yeah, the British came in and kind of screwed everything up. Actually, the British did the best job of screwing everything up, more so than the U.S. did. Now, the way that the British screwed up the most things was through the use of another world superpower militarily. Once we started kicking the British butt, um, once we could meet their might militarily, they did the smart thing and turned to us as an ally and utilized us to enact their worldview of things. When their imperial reign ended, not imperial reign, imperial. Once their empire fell, um, they utilized their buddy, the U.S. and our military industrial might to basically break up the world into the way that they wanted to see it. The United States and Great Britain have been very, very good at drawing those lines, arbitrarily putting things on the map, changing the way the world sees itself. And Pakistan is a prime example of that. The separation of Pakistan from India was not the idea of the Pakistanis or the Indians. That was Great Britain and the United States saying, well, look, we've got two different people here. Let's give them two different countries. Let them fight it out over their beliefs later on. And that's exactly what happened. Um, we fought wars, we won wars, we flexed our muscle and said, this is the way it's going to be. Deal with it. And not everybody liked that. And we're dealing with those repercussions now. The Middle East, another prime example where the superpowers stepped in after winning wars and beating the crap out of people. We said, hey, look, we're going to draw some lines here on the map, and this is how you guys are going to do things forevermore. And surprisingly to us, those people didn't like that.
And
So it's kind of interesting.
to address Mary's comment about SSDI and all that stuff, um, eh, yes, it is paid for by everybody, but whether or not it actually works is another question entirely. Um,
Ooh, I'm going to jump on that one in a minute.
yeah, whether or not it works in its current form, it's actually not even a question. And the fact of the matter is no, it doesn't work. Because if there are not changes made, when I retire, there will be nothing there. So it's a good idea, but whether or not it works depends on who you ask. Yeah, it works for you because you're getting it right now. But when I need it, it's not going to be there. Now, that's not to say that I'm not going to continue paying into it so you can receive your benefits. But all that money that I paid in that was supposed to be for me when I retire isn't going to be there.
All right, so there's a misconception right off the bat. Um, Utopian version of this does work, and I'll give you the best examples of when SSDI, Medicare, healthcare for all, and everything work. Science fiction. Science fiction novels, it works every time. Universal basic income works every time. I'll give you a couple prime examples. Starfleet. So the whole Star Trek universe, it works. The Expanse novels, it works. Now, those on the lower spectrum of things that, the true socialist governments of those things. Starship Troopers, another prime example. Heinlein wrote about it all the time. Um, the misconceptions that I want to address here, though, is that paid for by everyone. So they are supposed to be paid for by everyone, Mary, and by saying that every employee and employer is supposed to work for the greater good of society. So if you have a company, it's not actually owned by an individual in those instances. And Reaper touched on this, that while you have somebody that starts a company, it's actually not owned by that individual, it's owned by the society. Well, that we don't do that. We especially don't do that here in the United States. And it's going to touch on the other misconception where it's paid for by all. Here in the United States, we don't have a paid for by all system. We have a paid for by the least apt to actually pay for it. And I'm going to point out a huge disparity here. So we use our taxes, mainly income taxes and corporate business taxes, to pay for these programs. That's how we fund our government. The government levies taxes on us. We do things, we get paid, and for the privilege of doing those things, we pay our government money that we assume the government is going to use for our benefit. So by paying your income tax, Reaper pays his income tax and he pays into his SSDI and his Medicare and everything else like that. And he made the statement that when he needs to pay, or when he needs to use it, he was paying in it for himself. Well, that's where the mistake lies, because he wasn't paying for himself. He was actually paying for everybody else. Um, he's actually never going to pay in enough through his income to support himself. The hope is that after enough people pay in over time, it will be able to support everybody in need. So Reaper actually needs other people to pay in to support him. And it gets back to his statement of, for every dollar you put into the economy, it's paid for 5.5 times over, which is in fact the case. So every dollar he puts in should get multiplied within the economy 5.5 times. And that is how it works. But Reaper, like I said, doesn't pay enough to support himself. He needs all those other people putting a dollar in and it getting multiplied 5.5 times. So basically, for every one person you're putting into the system, it has a benefit of compounding itself and helping out multiple people. So that's the way that it's supposed to work. And when you have enough people do it, it pays for everybody. Now, here's where we have the problem with our current system. So Reaper pays his taxes. He pays his income taxes, which is great. Reaper doesn't make a lot of money, though. He doesn't make enough to support even himself. He sure as hell doesn't make enough to support 10 other people within society. So the way that it's supposed to work is that these large corporations are supposed to pay so much in taxes that it supports all the people beneath them. And this is where we have a huge breakdown in the socialistic or communistic belief of our democratic republic. I'm going to use Jeff Bezos and Amazon as an example. Jeff Bezos is set to be the world's first trillionaire. That man makes so much money that his taxes alone should support 5% of the United States population. That if 5% of the United States population didn't work, Jeff Bezos makes enough money that it should be able to support all of those people if he paid the same percentage of taxes that Reaper does. He doesn't.
No.
Not even close. Jeff Bezos pays roughly 0.01% taxes on his income. His company, Amazon alone should support another 10% of the US population just in corporate taxes. Do they? No. So you have one person and one corporation should basically be able to cover 15 to 20% of the United States population on Medicare, SSDI, and everything else like that. But they don't. They don't support even 1% of it, because the way our system is set up is We have a government where anybody can attain that status. That's why so many people want to come to the United States. The American dream is not make it rich and support other people. It is make it rich and support yourself. The ability to be so ultra rich that you don't have to worry about the death of millions of other people in a pandemic situation. That, as long as you are taken care of, all is right with the world. That is the American dream right there. And that's why so many people want to come here, because it's possible here. Elsewhere in the world, if you are this ultra rich, your government may step in and take everything you own. So let's take the People's Republic of China, which has plenty of billionaires in it. Don't get me wrong, it has lots and lots of billionaires, people that prey on their own economy, because it's a capitalistic communism, which doesn't make any sense at all. Um, it's actually not the type of government that we think it is. Um, the way that the Chinese government works is, at any point in time, the government of China can step in and take everything you own. That is the way their government is set up and works.
Which
Do
is
they do it? No. The reason they don't do it is because those people that are that ultra rich benefit by keeping that same system in place, because that's how they get ultra rich. Russia's another prime example. What were we about to say?
I was just going to say, which is also a fundamental part of socialism. Uh, what you have is not actually yours. Uh, the government can come in and say,
We need this for the people. We're taking it.
Yeah.
Now, the big difference with socialism compared to um, communism is the method with which people come to power. And this is also the difference between democracy. In democracy, the way that it's supposed to work is the people put somebody in charge. Um, and then by putting people in charge, those people represent us to make the decisions. In communism is supposed to work where we put one person in charge and they make all the decisions. And in socialism, you put together a form of government that makes all the decisions for you. So it basically comes down to 3 tiers of people making the decisions for themselves. Do you want to be ruled by one? Do you want to be ruled by a few? Or do you want to be ruled by a large group of people? So communism's ruled by one. Democracy is ruled by a few. And socialism is ruled by a large group, still that has one major person. They all have one major person in charge, but there are checks and balances. Communism has no checks and balances. Democracy has a lot of checks and balances, and socialism has a medium amount. So it's kind of a weird tiered system of the people screwing themselves out of their own rights.
Yeah.
Do you want one person in charge? Do you want a dictator? Do you want a regime? Or do you want a godlike figure?
Yeah, unfortunately, with the problem, not the problem, but the misconception of socialism is that it benefits all the people, and it doesn't, because people aren't inherently good. Unfortunately, there are good people out there, but those, like you said, those people tend to get squashed. You have a group of people controlling everything, and that group of people is going to make sure that they are taken care of. Look at even looking at our democracy. Congress has the ability to vote themselves a raise, and they do so quite regularly.
Every time. Yep, every time they get a chance.
You think that's going to change because now we call it socialism instead of democracy? It's not. The people in charge are going to look out for themselves. and they're going to look out for their friends. So, um, socialism doesn't work. And the reason it doesn't work is because people are greedy, and socialism gives them the ability to take more. So now, without just cause, the government can't come in and say, "Hey, Timo, you made X amount of dollars this year in your business. We need that. We've got poor people we need to feed. Give us your money." The government can't do that. In with socialism, the government can in fact do that, and it happens quite regularly. Uh, so even though Timo spent all the money, did all the work, made all this money to make sure that he was taken care of and his wife and kids were taken care of, socialism gives the government, the people in power, the ability to come in and take that. And it doesn't. They don't.
Let me clarify something real quick. So in socialism, the people have granted the government knowingly that ability.
Yes.
That's the huge distinction here. The people have knowingly given their leaders that right to do that. Where my disagreement is here in our Democratic Republic of the United States, our government can in fact do that. Now we have checks and balances where I, as Timo making all that money, can fight them. I have the right to disagree with their ability to do that, but I guarantee you our government does in fact have the ability to do it. And they've done it in the past.
It's
But
not.
it's a lot it's not as easy
Yeah.
because the people will sit there and go into an uproar. The people have not knowingly given their government the ability to do this. We've inadvertently given the government the ability to do it, and people would in fact complain. In a socialist government, while they might complain a little bit, be like, "Well, that's kind of crappy. You really shouldn't do it." They're not going to do anything to try and stop them. Whereas, here in our government, I could sue the government, take them to court, do all this other stuff, try and get my money back and everything. But there have been many cases where our government has in fact disagreed with people and seized all of their assets, where we've actually even gone in and deposed other leaders of foreign governments to do exactly that. Panama would be a prime example.
Yeah.
The Philippines would be another prime example. We tried it in Cuba, didn't work. See, we tend to flex our muscles outside of our own borders a little bit more than we do here in the States. But another example of where we've attempted to do this, if you look back at pretty much any major corporation over the years, the last big one that we attempted to do this would have been Microsoft, where the U.S. government went after Bill Gates, and even though we had gone and done this, um, the people actually rose up in defense of themselves and granted the United States government the ability to go after these individuals with the antitrust laws, because we had people like Mellon, Carnegie, um, uh, J.P. Morgan, Rockefeller. That's the name that always eludes me. We had all these people that were so ultra rich that they were destroying people's lives for their own financial benefit, that we knowingly gave Congress the right to go after them and break up their businesses. The antitrust laws are specifically to do that. Break up the business, seize their assets, put it back towards the government, and it's supposed to be for the benefit of people. So in my lifetime, we've had the deregulation of the cable industry, where the cable industry was basically granted monopolies by the government. We had the breakup of the monopoly of the phone companies. You guys remember Ma Bell? W. Bell and Company? which became Bell Atlantic, Bell South. It broke up this huge corporation that was for the benefit of small individuals, and forced competition. Well, the competition didn't actually benefit the people. So now I have 5 cable companies that can overcharge me, um, as opposed to just one. And actually, the one wasn't overcharging me nearly as bad as these 5 are. Uh, but we gave we gave the Congress the right to break up and do these things. Now, did they do it the right way? No, they didn't. They basically went out and just served the corporate greed a little bit better. Um, we went after Microsoft, and Microsoft basically said,
Yeah.
"Yeah, sure, go ahead, break our company up. You know what we're going to do? All your government computers that run our product are not going to work anymore. You're going to have to buy them all over again." And basically, the government turned to the industry and said, "Is there anybody that can help us out and do this?" And everybody said,
Nope.
"No, you guys bought that stuff. You're stuck with it. Good job. I dare you to break up Microsoft." And Bill Gates said, "Ha F you." And he survived the antitrust litigation against him. And he's a billionaire for it. Um, the Waltons, who own Walmart, they were looked at for antitrust violations and everything. And the Waltons basically said, "We dare you." We are, and we've proven so many times with the too big to fails. Um, if you go back and look at our history of, you know, when the banking industry started to collapse, why was JP Morgan Chase the first company to be given billions of dollars by the US government so that they didn't falter? Because if you go back 100 years, JP Morgan Chase, when it was just JP Morgan, the individual, when the United States government was about to fall apart and not be able to support its dream of being the great democratic republic of the world and the powerhouse, JP Morgan Chase or JP Morgan had the money to bail them out, and he did. And the government is forever in his debt for that. Why, as long as there's a US, JP Morgan will not fail. Man's been dead for 80 years. And his legacy is that his company will never fail so long as the US is still here.
I have to welcome Scott Bixler, and
Scott Bixler in the house. What's up, Scott?
let's his comment of let's wait and see if we get the second round of stimulus. We talked about that earlier, but basically, the long and short of it is if we get anything, it won't be until probably August. Um,
Let's see if we get the first round of stimulus checks before August. Let's see that.
yeah, and basically, my opinion, and I'm like I said, I follow this pretty closely, is that if the Republicans can figure out a way to stimulate the economy without giving money to the people, that's what's going to happen. So if somebody has a bright idea to get money into the economy without giving it to the people, then no, we will not get another stimulus check.
I have a great way to do it.
Uh-oh.
I have a great way to do it. And hey, this is actually a legitimate way to do it. Vote Vermin Supreme in the presidential election. Ponies for everyone.
Ponies for everyone.
A pony-based economy. Now, granted, this may be the people's pony. It might not. You might not get an actual pony for yourself. But if everybody gets a pony or access to a pony, that will solve all of our problems, guys.
Now, one thing we have not touched on is Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban has actually a surprisingly good idea. And basically, Mark Cuban's idea of trickle-up economics.
I just swallowed an ant.
Okay.
There was an ant in my coffee, guys.
Oh, no.
Oh, it's gone now.
Well, Timo ate today.
Yep, extra protein.
So, Mark Cuban's idea was to issue everyone debit cards. And put $1,000 every 2 weeks on this debit card, but with the condition that you have to spend it within 2 weeks. Or
So you have to clear your account before it will get more money?
yes. Now, that basically it eliminates the people saving money and not stimulating the economy. But it also guarantees that money is going to go into the economy. Now, there hasn't been it really hasn't been discussed, so what you can spend it on, whether you can pull it out and use it as cash, or whatever the case may be. Unfortunately, there aren't any other details on that, but for stimulating the economy, that is probably one of the best ideas that have been floated so far.
That's actually, I like that idea. Send me a link on any of Cuban's ideas if you can. So here's what I like about that idea. As Reaper said, that forces money back into the economy. It's non-discriminatory. It gives it to everybody, and I think somebody just actually pointed out that there's a lot of divisive rhetoric out there that is used to argue points on this. And this is where politicians suck the most. Where anytime somebody floats a good idea, they turn around and use that good idea as a talking point to divide the people from a good idea and turn it political. That it's going to get into the wrong hands, it's going to be used for the wrong things, it's really hard to regulate and everything else like that. But that in fact, that's pretty slick right there, especially if they could put it into a system where you had to spend it. The cash issue, I could see where that would be problematic, because then you lose track of things.
Yeah.
If you could cash out on that, then that's exactly what a lot of people would do, is they would cash out their money and hoard it. And it would not go back into the economy. If you make it so that it has to be a traceable... Sorry, I have a helicopter coming in, guys. I gotta mute myself for a second.
Now, Scott, which because we talked about debit cards already too. Which article are you referring to? Are you referring to the one that the Treasury is issuing debit cards to select people for the first round of stimulus checks, or the Mark Cuban idea that we're talking about now? And
Sorry about that.
to address your comment about California, what California did was they issued their own stimulus package for illegal immigrants, and it was $1,000 per person. And believe it or not, now this is something that I actually got into a kind of a heated debate at work about, because unfortunately people watch Fox News. We're just going to say that. Unfortunately, people watch Fox News. But basically, Fox News and Tucker Carlson, when this HEROES Act passed the House, part of the stimulus includes some immigrants. Now, what it says is that if you can pass an IRS presence test and you have an EITN number, which means that you pay taxes, then you would qualify for the stimulus check. What Fox News has done is basically crucified that as all illegal immigrants get the stimulus check, and it's not the case. But there was also a bill introduced. Oh, I have diesel, not tar. There was a bill introduced in the Senate on Friday that would withhold state money from any state that had their own program to provide illegal immigrants with money, which is specifically aimed at California because California is the only state to do it. But yeah, that's the California thing, the debit cards. Like I said, there's two different debit card topics. The one is the ones that are being issued for the first round of stimulus. And the one we were talking about here was the Mark Cuban idea that Timo was talking about.
Before I swallowed an ant and had to eat my microphone for the helicopter.
Yeah, which
so with getting back to Mark Cuban's idea. So for those of you that don't know who Mark Cuban is, or if you don't know who Mark Cuban is, Mark Cuban's a billionaire.
Owner of the Dallas Mavericks.
Owner of the Dallas Mavericks and a couple other things. He's also on the show Shark Tank. Entrepreneur, living the American dream, classic example of homeboy made good, screwed over a lot of people, made lots and lots of money. But actually where Mark Cuban is different from a lot of billionaires is he actually turns around and tries to do a decent amount of philanthropy and get his money back into society, and he tries to better other people's lives. He's not a total sleazebag of screwing people over. But bear in mind, when he makes a recommendation for a plan or something like this, he's also brutally honest in the fact that he'll tell you right off the bat, his goal is not to benefit society, but his goal is to benefit society in a way that will very advertently but minorly benefit himself. He wants the NBA to be able to open back up in some way, shape, or form, and he wants people to be able to spend money at NBA games so that he gets more money. And if this is good for society and good for the economy and good for the general people, power to it. He's also smart enough to realize that in times of need, if you just throw money at people, they're going to spend it on, as we already saw with the whole Best Buy thing, they're going to spend it on dumb shit first. Excuse my language. They're going to buy dumb stuff first, and then when they really, really need it, they're going to buy it on necessities. So going to an NBA game, buying a Dallas Mavericks jersey, probably not on the list of first, second, or third things that people are going to buy. He wants people to feel normal enough about their existence and secure enough in the fact that they can survive that they will go to another tier of discretionary spending. And as a businessman, that's actually a pretty good idea. If you get everybody back to that feeling, it will benefit. That will greatly benefit the economy in general and himself. So if he's saying, do something like this, please don't make the mistake that he's doing it for this will benefit everybody type of a thing. It's all for the good of the people. No, that's not what he's looking for. He wants to do the benefit of the people so that it eventually benefits himself. But he's at least honest about that. And that's what I like about Mark Cuban the most. He's
brutally honest.
He's brutally honest, and he's not ultra greedy. He is greedy, but he's honest in his greed. And he'll tell you, like if you watch him on Shark Tank, he'll tell you right off the bat, you've got a great idea. I think I can make some money off of it. And he'll support you 110% to help you make money because it makes him more money.
Now, one of the big things about this plan is that it lasts for either 6 months or up to a year. And that's really important because if you look at Georgia, again, as a prime example, people aren't spending money because they don't have any money coming in. If you give people one check for $1,200, there's a high likelihood that they're going to save it. If you tell them that there's more coming, here's your $1,000 for this 2 weeks.
You got
but
2 weeks to spend it.
but we're going to give you more, and we're going to do this for 6 months. So you're going to get $12,000 over the course of the next 6 months. People are going to spend it. Uh, they're going to buy the frivolous things, but they're also going to pay bills. They're gonna go to events. They're gonna try and get back to some semblance of normal life because they know there is more coming. Now you're gonna see that trail off at the end. If it's 6 months, by month 4, you're gonna see some people
Look to the future.
look to the future and try and figure out a way to save it, or maybe pay extra bills or something like that. But uh, giving people that sense of stability is really important to this whole plan. And unfortunately, wouldn't cost a whole lot more than what they're planning on right now.
Well, the big thing is, and this goes back to one of my other comments, that if Congress could sit down and make a plan for just this. So they're looking at anywhere between what, $2 and $3 trillion in stimulus aid.
The Senate leader,
McConnell.
yeah, Mitch McConnell, came out Thursday night in an interview and said that this package will not, under any circumstances, exceed $1 trillion.
Okay. So that's actually another interesting point right off the bat. So if you have one side of the aisle saying, okay, here's your limit, that's actually opening up negotiations in a way of being heavy-handed about it. That's like, okay, guys, we understand there's a problem, but we don't like the fact that you're doing 2 or 3 trillion. Limit it to $1 trillion, and you have a chance in hell of it passing. If you look at how a lot of these bills are written, there is no reason that a stimulus package to generate economic growth or recovery should be 1,400 pages. The only reason you ever have a bill with 1,400 pages is because it has so much pork in it, so much oversight, so much discretionary spending and stuff, that a lot of that can get cut out. You could limit a bill to 200 pages and it will do exactly what it needs to do and not do anything else. And therein lies the problem, is Congress is not set up to do something that needs to be done without tacking on something else. And both sides of the aisle are ultra guilty of this all the time. That if the Republicans hold the House, they put in a bunch of defense spending and a bunch of other things for their side. If the Democrats hold the House, they put a whole bunch of social programs in there and things that benefit them. And when it really comes down to it, you're like, okay, so all these healthcare things, they're great because healthcare for all is really good. Okay, so that benefits the healthcare industry and big pharma. If it's the Republican side of things, it's defense spending, infrastructure, that is construction and defense contractors. You're still benefiting one type of business, but the whole point of it is really supposed to be the people, and that's where they're failing. So it's interesting to hear a businessman's side of it with the whole Mark Cuban thing. And again, like you said, some people will look to the future, most people won't.
Yeah.
And I think this is where we've got a huge problem right now, is you have so many people are neglecting looking towards the future. That, like I said before, the axe is going to fall. The moment these businesses can go after people that they are normally getting money from, but they can't right now due to government regulations, as soon as those government regulations are lifted, you're going to have mass evictions, you're going to have mass foreclosures, you're going to have massive debt in the people owing, my cable bill right now is probably $1,000 because the cable company can't shut off my cable for non-payment. So guess what? We're not paying the cable bill. Why are we not paying the cable bill? We don't have the money to do it. Because plain and simple, with our limited income, we have to buy food with that money. We are living in the now. We're making payments on the electric bill, but it's not the whole thing because our electric bill we got a polar vortex charge again for crime in Italy.
Yeah.
I love the polar vortex charges. Um, but a lot of people are living even further outside their means because their means right now are so limited. Um, it's just gonna keep getting nastier and nastier and nastier. And you touched on the fact that we're now at what, 3 to 5 years for economic recovery,
Yep.
and for every week that this goes on, you basically tack on another 6 weeks to that time. That the longer we're in this situation, the longer that economic recovery is. Now, people also wonder, where did they get those numbers? How do they figure that out? That's off of established norms within our government. We have a lot of recessions to look at. How long did it take us to recover from this recession? How long did it take us to recover from this recession? How long did it take us to recover from the Great Depression? The problem with a lot of those recoveries is, what was the catalyst for recovery? And this is where I
War.
actually start to get, exactly. I am trepidatious, to say the least. I'm gonna be perfectly honest. I am brutally scared about how we are going to recover. And the first inclining um, was an article that I just happened to briefly encounter, and luckily it didn't gain much traction. Um, but the warmongering of things is really it. And it was a very brief article on how the current government, meaning the administration in place right now, might use this situation to do two things: stimulate economic growth and maintain power. If the current administration is worried that they're going to get replaced in November, one way that they can do it is by formally declaring war on another nation. And there are laws in place that can pretty much ensure that we can't get rid of our current leadership until war is retracted. That even if somebody loses an election, they have to maintain their position of power during that declaration of war. And a lot of these rules are actually, these laws are over 100 years old because times were vastly different. But our modern method of warfare is completely different. Now, we had there were rumors about this with the Iraq War and our engagements in the Middle East with the first time obviously was post 9/11. Would George Bush utilize his executive powers to maintain power should he lose the first election? That was never really a big thing. He also won his reelection campaign. And then when the election came up against Obama, would George Bush utilize those? Because technically we're in a state of war, although it wasn't a formally declared war, blah, blah, blah. Never came to be, but leadership at the time, I think, was actually much more level headed than what we currently have. And I don't just mean the president, I also mean, Speaker of the House, House Majority Leader, Senate Majority Leader, all these people that are in the highest forms of power, they don't want to lose that power. You have career politicians in place that have been there for 30 years that make millions and millions of dollars. And if they lose that position, they are nothing. Um, and they've obviously shown, especially recently, that they really don't care about the greater good of the people. They're just about themselves.
I
So
don't.
that is scary. That the best form of economic recovery is always time of war. World War One, prime example. World War Two, prime example. Vietnam, another one. Korea, another one. These were all engagements that we got into, um, unfortunately, to solve economic crisis.
I want to touch on something Mary said. She said the federal government can print money at will. That's not true. the federal government doesn't actually print any money at all. The Fed prints money, but the Federal Reserve is not a government institution. Now, that being said, the chairman of the Federal Reserve has come out with basically a press release every day telling Congress to get off their ass and get money into the hands of the people, and he will print money as needed because the economy is going to crash. I haven't heard. I'm waiting on the transcripts and stuff to come out. The chairman of the Federal Reserve and the Secretary of Treasury both went and testified in front of Congress on Friday. And I'm waiting to see how that went.
All right, let me touch on that one. As Husby's points out, we can't keep up with production due to the amount of pandemic deaths, and a war would cause more death.
All
What do
right.
you mean we can't keep up with pandemic deaths? We've only had, and this, oh God, this is going to sound horrible.
I was just
We've
going to say.
only had 96,000 pandemic deaths here in the United States.
That's what I was going to say. It's going to sound really callous and really heartless, but the pandemic deaths that we've experienced they have no economic impact. As far as the economy is concerned, now again, this sounds really heartless, and I'm not trying to be, because all of those people had families and had people that care about them. But as far as the economy is concerned, it's a drop in the bucket.
It's not even a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, I mean it's the economy. There's not even a ripple in the economy.
Let me throw a real quick set of numbers out there, because they're kind of important when they're taken in context. So, the current infection rate of the United States, highest in the world, and our death rate, highest in the world, still represents less than 1/3% of our current population here in the States for total number of infected. So basically, we've got just over 1 million people testing positive for COVID. With a population of over 320 million, that's less than 1/3 of 1% having been infected. And of that 1/3 of 1%, 6% of those people have died. So we have a death rate from the infection of 6%. Sounds horrible. It is. That's atrocious. That is a horrendous death rate. And so when you hear the people say, oh, this is just the common flu. Now, the common flu has a 0.1% death rate. COVID has a 6% death rate right now. That's horrible. But 6% of less than 1/3 of the percent of the U.S. population, that's not even 1/3 of the population of Pittsburgh. One city, a small city too.
Yeah.
Those numbers, like we said, unfortunately, they're not even a speck, not a drop in the bucket. And when you look at, and this is where I don't mean to sound callous or insensitive or anything else like that at all by saying this, but if you look at the actual people that have passed due to this virus, they don't represent a huge population of productive individuals within society. Now, and that's where that does sound really callous right off the bat. Well, how can you say, Timo, that these people were not productive members of society? The majority of these deaths are elder and infirm. While I am, in fact, immunocompromised and at higher risk, you have a bunch of people that were no longer, they weren't production workers. These weren't young, healthy individuals that are producing large parts of the economy. You had a bunch of elder and infirm, unfortunately, passed away because of this and everything else like that. So their deaths have even less of an economic result than if, say, Reaper passed. or marry your husband, um, or I don't know what Scott Bixler does, but if Scott was one of those people, um, so you have to look at all the different factors involved with what those numbers represent. Now, this pandemic is a horrible thing, don't get me wrong. Um, but those numbers really are super um, misleading on how they truly affect the general health of the country's economic status. Um, those are a lot of the big things that we have to take into account. Now, where the big part of it comes into is those quote unquote productive members of society do in fact have a very adverse effect right now with how they feel about things because of the illness and deaths of any member of society. They throw off the numbers completely. But um, particularly in a wartime production aspect, um, those numbers are insignificant. The death rate during World War II for production workers skyrocketed because you had I'm going to take the whole Rosie Riveter thing. So you had a bunch of young men went off to war because they were drafted for World War II, and you had a basically untrained labor force take over all production. They did a wonderful job, taking over for those that left their positions, and the women did a great job of actually making things happen and everything. But they had an atrocious death rate in the workplace because they were untrained. They weren't familiar with a lot of things, and a lot of accidents happened and everything else like that. You had a lot of unaccounted for deaths with rationing and stuff like that. People actually did starve because of things in World War II. The Great Depression was even worse. Illness and everything else like that, also horribly atrocious and everything. But those numbers don't really factor into it. So if we go into a wartime economy to re-stimulate everything back up and running, production is going to just change and totally alter all those numbers.
Well, and
Um,
another thing
but but are
that
people willing to? Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, another thing that about what Mary said about, if they do a draft or people willing to go die. The difference between now and World War II is we have a military.
We have a standing army.
We have a standing army that we don't need to draft. We don't need to send our production workers to war. Um, so if we were to go to war with another country, we're not slowing production down. We're
Not at
not.
all.
Now you're going to get some of those. You're going to get people that are going to leave factory work and they're going to join the military. They're going to do it voluntarily.
Because it pays better, ironically enough.
Yeah. But the majority of the workforce will remain unchanged. We have the largest standing army in the world. We don't need to take our production force like we did in World War II and draft all of those people. So
Cutting out.
yeah. All I'm trying to say is that we don't. That's not going to change. We're not going to change production because we already have the military to go to war.
Yeah, the way that the way that a wartime economy stimulates economic growth within the community um, is that you basically have guaranteed government funding for businesses producing items for the military industrial complex. So companies like Halliburton and Northrop Grumman and Lockheed Martin and everything, they hire a bunch of people to manufacture things, and well, they don't hire manufacturers. They hire people to do defense appropriations and everything else like that, which buy things from other corporations that have to make things for the military. So uh, a common idea: every U.S. soldier within the military is fed every day, 3 square meals a day. So that trickles down automatically from the government gives the military money. The military buys food from food producers who in turn hire people and employ people to produce said food. They need to get the raw materials from growers. So it goes all the way down to the farmers. The farmers have to produce more corn, wheat, rice, all sorts of different things, send it to the factories. The factories have to produce things. And we're not just talking about things like bread and sliced meat. We're also talking about Hershey's chocolate bars, um, beer manufacturers, water manufacturers, and then the packaging companies. You know, when you tie everything into it, it employs a lot of people, and then those people, in turn, by having gainful employment, spend money on other things. Hey, Twiggy, how's it going? Yeah, you are late this
Yeah,
morning. And geez, welcome to it.
yeah, really.
China has a big armory, and 80% Thai men are all trained. Yeah, China does in fact have a bigger army, but let me point out another numbers thing. So here in the United States, we have 320 million roughly citizens. China has 1 point something billion. They are 4 or 5 times our size population. Of course, they're going to have a bigger army. They have more people, plain and simple. And they can also just generally conscript all able bodied individuals into their army. They have that right and ability. They don't need to do a draft. They just hand you a gun and say, you're going to fight. Russia did it. Russia was really good at it. You know, that was the old joke of World War II. They gave one soldier the rifle, they gave the next soldier the ammunition, and sent them both across the line. One of them gets shot, drops their thing, the other guy picks it up, and then he can fire a weapon. They had the numbers. They had the sheer numbers of people to fight whatever war. So China's not who we're going to pick on. India's not who we're going to pick on because they outnumber us 3, 4, 5 to 1. We're going to pick on a country we can beat. We're going to go after somebody like Iran. That, you know, we've already established that they are a threat to our way of life. They are vilified within our you know, the ethos of our community and everything, because nobody can argue that Iran does some bad stuff.
It's funny you mentioned Iran because there was a bill proposed in the House 2 weeks ago that uh, basically would forbid Trump from declaring war on Iran.
Unfortunately, you know, that's an interesting point. So somebody is thinking about some of our topics of discussion, and that's heartening that somebody's thinking about that because they're an obvious choice, and I'll point out why they're an obvious choice. So you have hardcore liberals that have been voting since the 70s, currently around the Democratic Party. They remember the oil shortages of the 70s. They remember the Iran hostage situation. They remember Jimmy Carter not winning re-election to Reagan because of that. So the liberals don't like Iran, or they can bring that back up. The Republicans don't like Iran because we haven't been able to attack them. We haven't been able to do our thing with them. They've just been kind of in the back. Um, you know, so both parties can be tied together against one common enemy. And that's the difficult thing with major war engagements in the United States. You have to basically have an opponent that is so atrocious to our way of life that you can convince everybody that they need to be fought. 9/11, prime example. Um, you know, we had the tragedy of 9/11. So what do? We go and invade Iraq and Afghanistan. Afghanistan had nothing to do with it. You know, even though they allowed for the training of Al Qaeda within their borders, the Taliban were what we focused on. These groups of people, because everybody said, "Well, why are we going into Afghanistan?" Well, Afghanistan has been a hotbed of us sticking our nose where it doesn't belong for 50 years.
Yeah.
We fought in Afghanistan against the Russians in a Cold War. The Russians were a prime example of an opponent we could all get behind. Everybody hated the red threat, so we fought a war there, and then we pulled out and left, and it went to crap. And we came back later when somebody else stepped into the power void, and we could pick on them too. Well, now we can pick on the Afghanis again because they're slipping right back into it. We allowed bad things to happen over there again once we kind of pulled out and left. Um, so it's an easy excuse of why we flex our military muscle. We could drop a lot of bombs in Afghanistan and not affect a single American life in a way that is crucial, that we don't argue with those bombs being dropped. And bombs are expensive and they take a lot of people to produce, so it puts a lot of Americans to work advertently and inadvertently. The military complex is a huge, huge business. Um, and when you look at things, one of the other reasons that we don't fight a certain fight, the healthcare for all, I'm going to jump right back to that one. There's a reason we don't want to do healthcare for all as an economic gain, because that would adversely affect so many people in the United States' employment in a negative manner, because the healthcare industry is the number one employer in the United States right now. If you alter their economic status and their profitability and the companies start to lose money, a lot of people get laid off. So if you make the government pay for all that healthcare and it's regulated that the healthcare industry doesn't make as much money as they currently do, then not as many people are going to be working, and it's going to get ugly real fast. Sure, everybody's going to have healthcare. That would be great. Would they use it? Depends on what the system is and everything else like that. But does it really benefit you to have healthcare if you lost your medical billing coding job that got you healthcare? So now the government pays you for your healthcare, or you can at least get healthcare, but you don't have a job. Well, that sucks. So where are you going to work? Okay, there's new underclothes I bought that I was. Wait, what did I miss?
Bethels
Is getting smaller,
Um,
or
okay.
did your panties grow? That's what I want to know. Did the panties get bigger, or did you get smaller?
I was gonna say Bethels went shopping and she's back. Welcome back. But now what Timo said. I want to know.
Inquiring minds want to know. Just a couple well-placed cruise missiles in China's army is worthless. Interesting point, Scott. In modern warfare, I would agree. We have the technology, and this is why we don't have to worry about a draft. We don't need ground forces yet. We don't need boots on the ground. Hey, what's going on, Beffels? So that's not the way that we fight a modern war. And that gets back to the whole, okay, why do you need $22 million for a single airplane? Well, we employ a lot of people to make said airplane. Twiggy's aerospace industry. I would imagine that Twiggy's company that she works for has a lot of defense contracts. So people like Twiggy, in the event of a war, still have a job. And actually more people like Twiggy get a job in the event of a war, because we need aerospace industry people to build and manufacture not just that $22 million, and that's a lowball number on a fighter jet these days.
Yeah.
Let's actually talk that real cost. Let's
about
talk about
40
the
million.
$1 billion. Let's talk about the $1 billion bombers we like to buy. A $1 billion bomber, it doesn't really cost $1 billion to make that damn thing. It costs about $250 million to manufacture it, but there's so much additional money involved with it on so many different fronts that it comes out to $1 billion a piece. You got too small, y'all can have my old ones. Beffels is passing out her panties now, guys. That could be a good thing or a bad thing.
I was gonna say.
OnlyFans.com.
Yeah, onlyfans.com.
Yep. Beware of the new Patreon tax things that came out. You have to actually charge sales tax on Patreon now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the government stepped in. They wanted their money.
Of course they did.
People are giving away free money, and I'm sure they would hit OnlyFans.com if they could, but it's a British corporation. So FA-18 EF is roughly $100 million. So there's $100 million, but that $100 million, that FA-18 is perfectly capable of killing thousands of people without putting a single soldier on the ground in direct combat. Where we have the biggest problem. China's military might be useless in the event of a couple well-placed cruise missiles, unless they decide they want to take our land.
Hmm.
And that's where when ground wars happen, that's when World War II is the last great example of a ground war that involved, drafting so many people. Now, yes, we had a draft during Vietnam because a lot of people didn't want to go. We didn't have a standing army for it. But literally, China could take 5 soldiers, give one of them a rifle, 4 of them a single bullet, send them out on the field, and they would win, plain and simple, just because they have the numbers. And they don't want to do it. We don't want to do it. And thank goodness the world realizes that that's a potential. Now, the other scary thing is, of course, we are in the nuclear age. Can't say nuclear; my mother would kill me. We have the ability, modern warfare wise, to push one single button and kill off millions of people. And it's been a threat that we've had for 70 years now. And I understand that there are a lot of people that fear that. And that is one of those cases that, in the event that the current administration doesn't want to go and they can get a declaration of war, the use of military might in the form of a nuclear arsenal ensures that that person's not going anywhere for a while. I got to take a break. I'll be back in a couple minutes, guys.
Actually, Timo, don't go. We're just gonna go ahead and wrap it up. Or did he already bounce? Apparently, yeah. He literally ran. So let's see. Chinese Navy's nothing compared to America's. One of the things Timo touched on with the ground war there. One thing I don't, in my personal opinion, I don't think we would ever have to worry about is China or anyone else for that matter invading the U.S. Because although China may have the numbers in the military, if you invade the U.S., you don't just have to worry about the military. You have to worry out of the 320 million Americans, 280 million of them are armed. Twiggy, if you gotta go, you gotta go. Yeah, apparently so. Let's see. Couldn't they just bomb us back? Yes, Mary. That's kind of the that's the whole thing. That was the Cuban Missile Crisis. That was the whole thing behind the nuclear deterrent. Is if we bomb you before our bombs get there, you have the ability to bomb us. Um, so yeah, that in and of itself would be a bad outcome. Um, Mary, you can show that comment, or you're hang on. I'll tab out. You're busy. I don't know why that. Yeah, the one thing we don't have to worry about in the U.S. is invasion. I know we talk about my guns. We've talked about my guns quite a bit in some conversations uh, that we've had at Discord, and I have since procured a few more. Scott Bixler would, as a vet, you'd go shoot back at an invading country, and so would your other vet friends. If it came down to it, and we needed soldiers, the government wouldn't have to institute a draft. They would literally just have to relax the requirements, and you'd have, millions of people that would volunteer. I don't know if this one will fit, but we're going to try it anyway. So what's the plan for tonight? I see Beffels and Mary Lizzie making some plans there. I see Jeff is going to join in on some gaming. So he gets to witness firsthand the screaming and running of Beffels. Nope, not paying attention to where I'm driving. Come on. Having problems with the plug on my controller. Every time I move it, it wants to disconnect and reconnect. Come on.
I'm back.
Welcome back. I tried to catch you before you left.
Sorry, I had to run real quick. The coffee in, coffee out thing.
Yeah, I was just going to say we could go ahead and sign off. It's actually almost 2:30. It is 2:30 now.
It is. It's up to you.
Yeah.
I do have to go personally, but especially now that I realize what time it is, I'm like, oh crap, I'm late. I'm way late.
Yeah, we can thank everybody for coming and hanging out. I know it's been a few weeks, but we're doing the best we can. Like I said at the beginning, for me, the transition from going to basically sitting here playing games and talking to all you guys to going back to work full time, it's kind of tough.
Yeah, I get to start that kind of same thing tomorrow, so it's gonna be interesting for sure. Because I'm gonna go from sitting here playing video games all the time to busting my ass 4 days out of the week, and yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun.
So yeah, thanks for hanging out, guys. I appreciate it. Love the chat, as always. Oh, come on.
What you do now?
My controller, the plug is kind of loose.
That's what she said.
Yeah.
No comment. Well, I already made a comment.
Okay. Let me stop the truck here, save my game, and you can go ahead and sign us out there, or sign us off.
All right. Well, again, what he said. Want to thank everybody for stopping by. Love and appreciate y'all. The love and support we've had over these past couple months has been great. Everybody stay safe out there. Don't forget, hashtag wash your damn hands. And until next time, we will see you guys later. And go plow your own damn fields.